Hi friends, good evening, and this is your host Ankit Khandelwal joining you from Delhi, India, and we have Nick Pallotta joining us from Raleigh, North Carolina. And welcome to IMPG Med Friday with Doctors. And as usual, we have a lot of doctors lined up. But before we start, I would like to convey, or I would like to tell to all our viewers around the world that today is 2nd of October, and it's a national holiday in India because of Gandhi's 151st birthday. And everything is closed down. It's a national holiday, and people are at home during the COVID. But there is no celebration as such. But we do a lot of work for non-violence, and there's a lot of talk shows and stuff like that going around to make sure that we celebrate peace and stuff like that. So I would like to play a documentary about Mahatma Gandhi as well. But before we start, I would like to invite my guest. We have Anand Mai joining us from Delhi. Hi,
Namaste.
good evening. How are you?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kumar.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Moscow joining us from US. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks. Great to be here.
Wonderful. We have Rakesh Krishnan joining us from Hong Kong. Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
Very well. And you?
And we have our Washington correspondent, Dr. Bill Persimmon, joining us from Washington. Good morning, Bill. How are you? Bill needs to unmute yourself. And in the meantime, we have Sasha Starr joining us from Canada. Good morning, Sasha.
Good morning, everybody.
Welcome to IBM. So, before we move to the discussion, you know that there's something important happened in US. So, would you like to share what's the story?
Do we have our Washington report?
Yeah, I'll play the Washington report.
From IBM TV, International Broadcast Media, this is your report from Washington. Thank God it's Friday and there are only 32 days left. Forget the medical mask. Trump won't be wearing one. An item of clothing Trump made fun of most recently on Tuesday during his blistering attacks on Biden during the presidential joint exercise. Trump has COVID-19, the hoax pandemic virus. Barring any complications after a 14-day quarantine, Trump will have only 18 days to campaign. For now, no more rallies, no more stump speeches, no more debates, interviews through a plastic bubble only. Trump is 74 years old, putting him at a higher risk of serious complications from a virus that has now killed more than 200,000 people in the United States and more than 1 million globally. If Mr. Trump does become symptomatic, it could take him weeks to recover. Under the 25th Amendment, a medically incapacitated president has the option of temporarily transferring power to the vice president and can reclaim his authority whenever he deems himself fit for duty. Under the Presidential Succession Act, enacted in 1947, if both Trump and Vice President Pence were unable to carry out their duties, welcome to President Nancy Pelosi. News of the infection of the most powerful man in the world drew instant reactions of shock, sympathy, and undisguised glee, and of course, suspicion, with some suggesting that this is a ploy to avoid further debates and cast a sympathetic light on his dwindling chances at re-election. With his campaign coffers dwindling, it is increasingly hard to see how Trump can maintain a national campaign. The presidential debates on October 25th and 22nd are in serious doubt whether or not Trump survives the virus. Russian President Vladimir Putin is extending wishes of a speedy recovery to Trump, expressing sincere support in this difficult moment. But he did not offer Trump the Russian-made vaccine he earlier offered to the entire United Nations. Biden's campaign has made no announcements about his condition, and Biden appeared on an indoor stage with Trump for 90 minutes at Tuesday's debate. Biden appealed to the nation's Roman Catholic voters on Thursday during a charity dinner that has traditionally been used to promote collegiality and good humor. But in the face of the pandemic and economic woes for millions of Americans, there was no joking at this year's Alfred E. Smith Memorial Foundation dinner, which went virtual because of the pandemic. The event comes as Biden and Trump make fierce plays for Catholic voters. In other news, the House has approved $2.2 trillion stimulus plan put forth by the Democrats, but it still does not have enough bipartisan support to make it through the Republican-led Senate. In other words, there's still no economic stimulus relief in sight for struggling families and businesses. An additional 837,000 Americans filed for first-time unemployment benefits last week. Economists predict the September jobs report will show a gain of 850,000, but this would mark a third straight monthly slowdown since job gains continue to remain below 1 million a month. At this rate, it would take until late 2021 or 2022 to recoup them all. Stock futures plunged as markets began to absorb the news. The futures tied to the Dow lost 430 points. The move indicated an opening loss of more than 400 points. S&P fell 1.7%. NASDAQ declined 2.3%. Futures were off to their worst levels. In a sign of the times, a Florida woman who won $1,000 in a second chance drawing on July 29th isn't getting her prize because the certified letter she sent via the post office to the Florida Lottery's headquarters never arrived. She was told no ticket, no prize. And you wonder why we always worry about Florida. And the Irish Supreme Court rules that Subway sandwich breads are too sugary to be legally called bread. They contain 10% sugar rather than the limit of 2%. The sandwiches are now pastries. The question is, how will this affect Brexit? Finally, the current COVID death toll from Johns Hopkins is over 207,816 American souls lost and 1,023,451 global souls lost with no end in sight. That is your report for October 2nd, 2020 from IBM TV, International Broadcast Media, smart television for a smarter global community, from dictatorships to democracies around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I'm Bill Trezevant.
Thank you, Bill. That was good.
Do what they did.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so there might be some issue with the game's laptop or maybe something, I don't know.
Well,
So Bill, what's the story from Washington? I mean, how serious is Trump right now, and what are the plans for election?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bill, can you hear us?
yeah. Bill, he wants to know what's the plan now that COVID-19 hit the White House.
Okay, I guess the plan is, everybody can hear me, right? Okay.
Yeah.
The plan is the following, at least in the White House. The President and the First Lady are going to be under quarantine for at least 14 days. So that's mid-October, actually October 15th, which is the day before the currently scheduled second presidential primary. They will obviously have to be tested at that point, and barring any symptoms, if he becomes symptomatic, that would change things. However, that would only leave 18 days left for the campaign. I suspect that everybody's going to take a second look at everything else that's going on. By way of information, October 5, this is the equivalent of a nuclear information bomb hitting the campaign. I mean, just think about it. We have the economy. We have a relief package that's not quite there. We have massive layoffs, the contraction, then the pandemic, and then the campaign. Now, I guess on one hand, and I'm glad it's Medical Friday and it hits today, just like his taxes hit on Economic Mondays. But you have to say that at least Trump is good for the day's news story here at IBM. However, I don't think that anyone can further deny that the pandemic is real. It is not a hoax, and that we should be listening to the doctors. Other than that, we should just hang on and buckle up.
Well, we have a doctor here, Dr. Moskowitz. Maybe we should be listening to you. What's going on with the pandemic?
Well, we've heard the numbers. The pandemic is raging. The problem is nobody's listening to me. They're listening to other doctors. They're listening to Dr. Fauci in particular, who is telling us to wait for the vaccine. It's pretty clear that waiting for the vaccine doesn't help people like the president who are infected now, and like the other million people who've been infected and died. On the other hand, there is a treatment that I've been using now since April, this natural product. Thank you very much, Nick, for the visual aid. And it gets rid of symptoms on average in 6 days, as opposed to 19.6 days, 20 days essentially, without it, without quercetin. So it cuts symptoms down to a third. And I would recommend that the president and the first lady at least try it. There's absolutely no downside. It's very safe.
Right. That's what I was looking at. When I was looking at this, not only does it show up very high on the IBM supercomputer called Summit. Not only does it show up very high on Tennessee's independent study, it's like in the top 5 solutions to COVID-19. But here's what I do find out. Nobody's looking at it. In other words, other than that one study out of University of Tennessee, it's almost like it's being completely ignored, which bothers me a lot. So, Dr. Moskowitz, why is this whole area being ignored? What's the reason?
Well, I think it has to do with the tremendous telescoping of who's a real doctor that's happened in American medicine for the past half century. The only people who count are doctors at very fancy med schools, which I went to when I was a kid, when I was a studente. And people at the NIH like Fauci, people with big names behind them at Harvard and Memorial Sloan Kettering and places like that. The problem is that healthcare as a whole is extremely anti-innovative. And all those places are working very hard to make sure that no diseases are ever solved again, because nonprofits, for example, like the ASN, the American Society of Nephrology, professional institutions, National Kidney Foundation, nonprofits would cease to exist if we stopped having kidney disease, which is what I know best about. I've had a perfectly fine, safe, effective, cheap protocol for getting rid of dialysis in both acute and chronic renal failure, and absolutely nobody in healthcare anywhere in the world, starting with the World Health Organization and Medicare, who pays for dialysis here in the US, has had the slightest interest in getting rid of dialysis. Instead, about 20 million people have died so far. So when you ask me how come something simple like quercetin, which appears to do the job, is being totally ignored, I counter with how come something simple like high-dose quinapril, which could have saved 20 million lives already, is also completely ignored. It's because our system needs a radical change. It needs to become preventive. It needs to become pro-patient instead of pro-healthcare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and outside of this, I have seen no treatments that are out there, Dr. Moskowitz. In other words, there's nobody who's even talking about, possible treatments. I've heard a lot about injecting people with the coronavirus. In other words, people that have had gone through the coronavirus, injecting them with antibodies from that. It seems pretty invasive, and I'm not sure what the solution is. But just like any solution, Occam's razor, you try to find out what is the simplest way to get the result, and that showed up pretty high. But I just don't see any backing on the treatments. Everybody's pushing toward vaccine, but not treatments. Why is it we're pushing vaccine and not treatments?
Well, the Nobel Prizes have gone to immunology. Clinical medicine seems to be completely bamboozled by the power of antibodies, the magic, the majesty. And Fauci is the major proponent of the power of antibodies, not just elicited by vaccines, but in passive transfer experiments, essentially, to people who are sick. And Fauci doesn't believe that anything smaller, anything like a small molecular weight compound like quercetin, which is the size of Coumadin, I mean, it's a few hundred Daltons in size, could possibly do anything useful against a viral disease. And so it's an example of very narrow-minded sort of horse blinders on a very powerful guy who is essentially making all of healthcare bark up the wrong tree. We are less innovative now than global healthcare was in the 20s and 30s. It's sad.
Yeah, but it wouldn't seem empirically obvious that because there are certain people that are especially younger, they would get COVID-19, but it really doesn't affect their mortality statistics greatly. That the boosting of an immune system would be a positive um, attribute for anybody. In other words, should be like the first line of defense is to have a powerful immune system.
Well, it doesn't take long before you're talking about COVID-19 that you get out of your depth, and I'm no exception. But in fact, our first case was a young guy, an 18-year-old, and it's not boosting his immune system that I'm trying to do. It's actually suppressing it. What kills you is not the virus. You can be shedding virus for weeks and not have any symptoms at all, and certainly not be dying. But what kills you looks like it's your own host innate immune response, especially your mast cells, especially the MRGPRX2 receptor recently described that responds to viral nucleocapsids that basically wrap all viruses, nucleic acid, be it RNA or DNA, but resembles a basic secretagogue, which triggers mast cells to degranulate and release the 200 plus products that they have in their granules, including things like histamine and heparin and renin. So all hell breaks loose when the mast cells get angry, and quercetin can block that receptor.
Okay, right, gotcha. Now, what about things like prednisone? Have you seen that? Does prednisone have a positive effect on COVID-19 patients?
It sure does. And you can get by most of the time treating people with COVID as if they had asthma with a short course of prednisone. But like in my case report, my guy failed 120 milligrams of prednisone a day. I started him at 60, and I went, instead of being able to taper him off, I had to go up to keep him alive. And then after 2 doses of quercetin of a gram each over 16 hours, he felt normal again.
Really?
So, I mean, something that's more powerful than prednisone I've never seen before in my life.
Right. Wow. I mean, yeah. I mean, to me, that's a very powerful statement. Yet, I, like I said, I have just not seen anything on that other than what I've seen from IBM's supercomputer. You talking about it, one study by Tennessee, and the rest of the major media ignores it completely, and everything else they run to Moderna Group, Pfizer, Johnson and Johnson, vaccine. But yet on IBM TV, we actually believed that this would be a major problem, and we predicted the deaths. So of course, I was following University of Washington, who does a lot of analytics on it. So it was pretty easy to make these wild, big predictions. There were going to be a lot of deaths because University of Washington was following it. And then we thought treatment would be the next step. In other words, finding a treatment before the vaccine. But I just haven't seen much on treatment other than you're like the lone wolf in the world talking about it. Aren't there any other colleagues that you have looking at treatments like this?
No, unfortunately.
Okay, that's not good. Okay, now the thing is also not good. President Trump coming down with COVID-19. Isn't he in a high risk group? He's over age 65. He's 74. He's borderline obese. Okay.
I wouldn't say borderline.
When you say you wouldn't say borderline, then what would you say about his obesity?
I'm as obese as he is. We're both obese.
Okay, all right. So he's obese and he's over age 65. Doesn't that put him in a high risk category for a serious illness?
Yeah, I'm afraid it does. All baby boomers are in that high risk category, and older people in their 80s and 90s. And so it's very scary. And I absolutely wish him the best, and his beautiful wife, Melania. And he could do more for solving this pandemic by trying quercetin. than anything that's been done up to now. And I think not just President Trump, but also all the school kids going back to school and college have got to hear about quercetin. Otherwise, they're going to die too. And that is going to be a tragedy. I mean, President Trump and us have lived our lives, and it's no big deal if we die now or 10 years from now. But these school kids who are going to be the future, who are going to be future Einsteins and stuff, who are going to carry the civilization forward, they have got to be protected better from this virus.
Right. And look for some solutions and look for some innovative solutions, which, like I said, my just observations, outside observations show that is a potential game changer that everybody tends to ignore, which I don't see why they're ignoring a potential game changer. But this to me looks very serious for him because of his demographics. He's in that high risk category, and whenever you're in that high risk category, that could also have an effect on the election coming up. Rakesh, since you're into science, what are your thoughts about this out of Hong Kong?
We've just had a little bit of a surge in Hong Kong about some more cases today. I think about 20 or 8 more cases. Sorry, 8 more cases in Hong Kong. This is the persistence of this virus is really amazing. I would sort of I've noticed that quercetin has made its appearance in the Watsons and the popular chemists in Hong Kong. I don't see queues for it though. I was wanting to buy one for myself. Probably will do on my way to New Zealand. Just been busy packing, so haven't bought a pack for myself. But I think with the information Dr. Moskowitz has mentioned, and we've been constantly talking about it in this show, it's worth a good shot, to be honest.
Yeah, Ms. Kumar out of India. What are the talks, quercetin in India? Or are there any talks about that? Because I know that coronavirus is spreading right now on the subcontinent. Are they talking about quercetin or treatments like that?
No. So I have heard about this name for the first time. But there are different alternative treatments which, as doctors doing the research on his own and saying that he has a cure, sort of a cure for the treatment. Same, there are doctors in India who are doing their researches and telling that the symptoms can be cured in about 3 to 6 days with their treatment. But the story is same, no one is hearing them and they are on their own.
That's really sad. I mean, because the thing is, people are having anecdotal evidence on treatment, but even it's anecdotal, it's something that certainly should be brought forward. But I don't see that being done. Let's go to Canada. Sasha, what about the treatments in Canada, quercetin, or are there any treatments that they're looking at over there in the Canada?
I'm not so sure if there are any new treatments, but there are always new laws, at least in the province of Ontario, where I live, it's Toronto. And it's probably the strictest environment in whatever I can see around the world. It's implemented right here in Ontario. They're preparing complete lockdown from November if situation will not improve, even if it's not going to get worse, but still the same, most likely lockdown in November. With everything is locked down, schools, offices, everything. There are heavy fines for gathering of more than 10 people inside, 25 people outside. The organizer gets fined $10,000 and the participants $750 each. I'm a strong believer in a system of fines and penalties, monetary among them. So I think it would work. Of course, corporal punishment should be considered, but and as a last resort. as a last resort, a guillotine, but nobody would listen to me anyway. So, I'll be quiet about that. Now, I've looked at some Russian websites. The interesting thing is that the news about Trump getting infected with coronavirus got the record number of likes around the world. It's incomparable to just anything. Now they're discussing all kind of strange topics, like whether Trump will have his own will and Melania her own will, or they will have one will together. And so that type of talk is quite entertaining, though. Um, well, we'll see. We'll see. Oh, by the way, this British website, Bet365, which provides a line on bets on U.S. Presidency election, and not only that, even state by state, they give you odds. You can bet, for example, who's going to win a state like Florida or North Carolina. You can make bets. In the last 2 days following the debates, it was approximately equal before debates, and after debates, all of a sudden the heavy advantage to Biden followed. Right now, or at least a few hours ago, you could put bets at 1.6 for Biden and 2.4 for Trump. However, after the news with coronavirus, they took out all the bets on U.S. elections. There are no bets available at the moment.
Whoa.
Follow up.
Whoa. No bets available now, so that they're off betting line. Why did they take all the betting line off the U.S. election? Why did they do that?
Well, because with this coronavirus thing, it's very difficult to predict anything. First of all, are there going to be debates between Biden and Trump? Trump yesterday, before the news of him being positive, he was denying that he would agree to any changes in the format of debates or rules or anything, right? So it was already a problem whether there will be debates or not. Now, most likely, with this news of him being infected, there will be most likely no debates at all between him and Biden, which is very good news for Biden, because basically it's Trump's election to lose. Biden can do just nothing and just win it simply by default. On the other hand, the vice presidential debates between what's his name, Mike Pence and Kamala Harris, that's also being questionable. First of all, it's unclear whether Pence is coronavirus free. I mean, he may test negative at the moment, but he could be negative tomorrow or the very next day, because obviously he was in contact with Trump. I can't believe that they didn't have any contact. So even that in jeopardy. Now, of course, the appointment of the new judge to Supreme Court, obviously, it's now most likely off the table. I think with all these problems, actually, you know what, it could be a landslide victory not only for Biden, but even for Senate openings that there are now for upper election. The Republicans are completely in disarray, and they lost any credibility anyway. And now, with all things what's happened, they were supporting Trump and not wearing masks and so on. And we have over 200,000 deaths in the U.S. It's a complete disaster. There is no any other name for what's happening there.
Yeah. Well, let's go to India, the world's largest democracy, with Ankit and his 1.3 billion Facebook followers, which also, by the way, it is a holiday in India right now. So you may want to tell everybody about the holiday that's in India.
So today is 2nd October. It's Mahatma Gandhi's 151st birthday. That's what we celebrate as a national holiday, which is also known as Gandhi Jayanti. And also, it's a birthday of Lal Bahadur Shastri, one of our prominent leaders in the past. And it's a vacation day, but during the COVID, also a lot of people are not going outside. But during this day, we don't celebrate as a festival kind of thing, but we do a lot of talks about non-violence and stuff like that. And people just try to be happy, calm, and make sure that they follow the right practices. But what I wanted to mention, and I wanted to know from Dr. Moskowitz, is that there's a vaccine which is being released by Russia, and there's a lot of debate on social media that Putin will be sending some vaccines to Trump so that he will be ready for election. So I'm not sure what's that. Second of all, I wanted to know that, I mean, when there were a lot of presidential debate going around, there are a lot of people within the team of Biden and Trump, and they definitely meet up or maybe from far. So I'm just concerned about those people. Are they also, I mean, what's the news about them? Because they can super spread the virus. Thirdly, when we talk about the elections, I mean, I know it's difficult for Trump to be a part of the debate, but we have a technology called ARVR. I mean, I think we can usually manage those election campaign or debates in a different format because the technology is there and there are companies who can manage it out. Because as of now, also in the debates, people are not allowed. That's what I know from India. I'm not sure whether people are joining the debates, but we can definitely have a digital twin of Trump as well as Biden, and I mean manage the debate because debate is what people are looking for from past so many years, and it's not in US abroad. I mean in India and around the world, they wanted to see what's happening in the debate between presidents and vice presidents because such kind of debate is not happening in India, and we wanted something to happen in India maybe in future, but it's not happening. So these are some of the questions, but I still wanted to know what is the Russian vaccine you think is feasible to utilize for the world. What do you think about that, sir?
Well, Ankit, excellent questions. I see that Nick has left the screen, so I'm going to go on for hours because
I'm just backstage. That's all.
you're back.
I'm Dr. Moskowitz. I'm backstage listening.
Because I thought Ankit would be curious and let me go on. But Nick is running the show. So first question, vaccine, how useful will it be? Answer, not at all. Because it is designed to produce antibodies in a month. A month from now, Trump is either going to be alive or dead. Basically, it's a week from being positive to having symptoms. So the danger period for Trump is next week, not this week. Then you've got about a week to find out whether you can't breathe or not. And then you'll be shedding virus for the next 2 weeks after that, but you'll be getting better. In general, it takes about 3 weeks to get over a virus, which will be at the end of October. The only thing that would save him right now is a treatment, not a vaccine. So if he gets really bad symptoms, maybe the passive antibody transfer might help. But for sure, quercetin is the only thing possible that would limit his symptoms. In terms of your second question, is he going to spread it? The answer is, of course. This is an extremely infectious virus. And in fact, our whole strategy, I think, has, I think, been an obvious failure given the numbers involved, given that there's 7 million cases, 1 million cases in the US, 1 million deaths worldwide, 205,000 deaths in the US. Obviously, these masks are not doing the trick. And what I think we should do is forget about cases and only focus on preventing deaths. And that gets to my third question, which is what should the debate format be? So if you can prevent death from symptoms, if you can get rid of symptoms very quickly within 16 hours, then it's not a death sentence to have this disease. And it becomes just like the regular flu. You can pass it on to other people. They can take quercetin and get over their symptoms. So becoming a case is not the end of the world. And that's what I think we should do with this, with COVID-19. I think we should turn it into just the regular cold, taking quercetin, not quarantining and ruining the economy and stopping essential activities like this debate. As bizarre as the first one was, as childish as the president behaved, I'm sure he'll get better. And you don't actually have to postpone life if you have a good treatment for this virus.
And I think, sir, when you talk about the debate, I mean, there's a lot of discussion going around, and I think that's what Trump wants, that people discuss about the debate. And also, I think that this is a learning curve for the presidents to come, because they will not be doing that mistake in future. The way it happened and the way it moderated, it was not up to the mark. That's what we were discussing on IBM TV. That I mean, it was not looking like a presidential debate to what we used to watch, but nevertheless, that's what's happening in US. But apart from that, I mean, we are still. I mean, if you talk about WHO, they still release a press release. They are still following a lot of norms and stuff like that. And in India, we still have 80,000 plus cases every day recorded. So where are we see ourselves? Because we still have a better mortality rate as compared to the countries in the world. But I mean, it's like 7 months or 8 months. How much we can protect ourselves? Because at some point of time, people will get suffer for it, and I'm concerned about what happened after the cure. Suppose someone have a COVID and they recover from the COVID, but they are symptoms which is there in your body, and they can, I mean, they can destroy your organs in future as well. And we can see a lot of disinfection cases also going around from Hong Kong, from Malaysia, from Singapore, from India, and around the world. So, anything about the disinfection, and where do you see, I mean, people are suffering after, I mean, getting cured from COVID?
Well, I think that's the problem. It's fall now, and people are getting regular colds, and so the good news is that quercetin may actually be a general viral antidote. It may be good for influenza as well as for the SARS coronavirus #2. And so I think quercetin may become standard treatment for anybody with the sniffles. My question for you, Ankit, is how many people are dying every day in India?
So in India, the average number of dying is around 1,000 something. Sometimes it's 1,100, sometimes 1,200, sometimes 100. But since I think more than 2 months, it's been above 1,000. That's
So
a recorded. That's a recorded number from government.
total for the country so far, how many?
1,000 per day. 1,000 per day.
And total for the whole
Total,
country?
as of now, we have already crossed 100,000 people already died so far.
So half of the U.S. So that's
Half
incredible.
of the US, it's 100,000 only. I mean, 100,000. I think US have more than that.
We have 200,
250 or something.
205.
Okay, 5. Okay, I thought it's 250.
So for a country that is almost 5 times bigger, 4 times bigger, you have half the number of deaths. So I think your diet is probably saving lives. I think the quercetin in your diet, curry, other things, is the vegetarian nature of your diet is probably saving a lot of lives.
In fact, I mean, there are a lot of people who are non-vegetarians in India as well. But as of now, the doctors are prescribing paracetamol and couple of like vitamin C's and zinc or white and stuff like that to make sure that you have enough vitamins in your body, and make sure if you have some mild symptoms, you try to do it. And then we have our own natural ways of healing ourselves. We do a lot of steams using a lot of inhalers, and we also have a magical recipe called a boiled spiced water. And there are a couple of more. I mean, so in fact, we take a lot of turmerics and we take a lot of ginger, we take a lot of cloves, garlic, and stuff like that to make sure that we have enough immunity. And we are practicing it from past like 6 months during the, but generally, a lot of people take it over a period of time, lifetime of their life. In fact, we have one more medicinal thing which all the Indians and Asians understand, which is known as Chyawanprash, and that has a lot of like multiple vitamins and proteins and Ayurveda and herbs, which comprise to form a kind of what I can say. I mean, it's kind of a chocolatey color flavor, but it's little different with more of spice. And if you take it 1 spoon every day in your life, you will be free from a lot of basic symptoms. So that's what people follow in India, and these are the best practices. In fact, we use a lot of basil in our food and in our day-to-day stuff as well. In fact, since COVID, a lot of people are not drinking cold water in India. They are using hot water, or they are using a water which is in an earthy pot, and put the basil so that it becomes pure and it clarifies a lot of stuff. So that's what we are following in India. I think Rakesh, you want to mention something?
Yeah, the Chyawanprash is actually very, very concentrated vitamin C. Gooseberry boiled 200 times in milk till it concentrates.
Yeah.
It is extremely effective. I've been using it. I used to have colds when I was a kid. I used it and practically haven't seen a cold for a long, long time.
Well, gooseberries have quercetin, and the hotter you heat things up, the better you dissolve, extract quercetin from wherever it's in.
And Dr. Moscovich, in fact, in that Chyawanprash, it's a mixture of like 100 different ingredients, including silver and gold.
Yes.
So if lot of your strength, and you'll get all the vitamins. And if you take like B12, if you take like multiple vitamins, if you just forget about it and just take one spoon of Chyawanprash every day, you will get all the required things.
Just one spoon is good enough. I can speak from experience.
Well, I think you guys are your country is extremely fortunate. Of course, you have 5,000 years of accumulated civilization to build on. So anything you say, I believe. I may not understand it, but I believe.
I understand. In fact, the basic symptom, or when someone has some mild symptom of anything, they used to have a turmeric milk, which is also popularly known as turmeric latte, which people in the world are taking it. But we used to known as haldi milk, which is a turmeric, a teaspoon of turmeric, put it in the boiled milk, and just have it every day, and you'll be getting
golden
a lot of
latte, now they call it.
Yeah.
Golden latte, yeah.
So I think NIPER should be looking at all these cures and testing them in COVID patients. I mean, if you've got the patients, you might as well get some use out of them.
No, we are in India. A lot of doctors are. Apart from their allopathic medicine, they are also telling people to take all these things because you won't be having any side effects of that. And these are natural antiseptic, natural bodies which gives you a lot of immunity. And also, if you have any kind of germs or anything, it will definitely wash it away. So and it's no harm to it. In fact, I shouldn't have to say on that, but doctors know that. By taking a lot of additional medicine which is not required, it gives you side effects as well. And we still don't know what the side effect of vaccine. So,
right. Well, that's what's so extraordinary is we've had 7 million cases and we still don't know what we're doing. I find that an incredible lack of curiosity.
Yeah. What about eating Indian food since it has a lot of quercetin in it? Dr. Moskowitz, should I be eating Indian food in the evenings instead of pizza?
I think if you're not, you have, you're in for the biggest treat of your life. Everybody should be eating Indian food. I love Indian food.
I love Indian food. That's what I was wondering about because I got discount coupons, obviously, go to my Indian restaurant. So in Indian food, I should get curry. Is that the best thing to order?
Curry is a form of a liquid, which is a veggie basically, but curry is, you have multiple curries of multiple vegetables. So it's just curry is just a category of it basically. But I'll tell you something interesting. We have a curry which is a mixture of yogurt as well as turmeric, and which is very popular in India. And also when people are a little unwell, they used to have it with rice, which is known as curry. It has yogurt, it has turmeric, it has some spices, and that's about it.
I think the spices are the key. Because the peppers and capers, that's where the quercetin is. Onions, red onions, apples.
So I'm getting hungry for Indian food.
I think there is one more interesting thing that in India we used to have a freshly cooked food every day, almost every day. We cook the food which is fresh and then we ate it. But in the Western world, we have seen that people are, not using that much of fresh food because they have a lot of packaged food and also they utilize the food in different manner. I don't know, but that's what I read on internet as well. But that also, the more fresh food you consume, the better your life and lifestyle is, and it gives you a lot of good ingredients to your body. Because if you have a gooseberry which is like 15-day-old, and if you have a fresh gooseberry, they are two different things.
Yeah, and Dr. Moskowitz, why is it that people in the United States ignore India and Malaysia that both have very little coronavirus issues relative to the population on one. And the other problem I have with Malaysia, they have a population of 30 million, total deaths 128. Why is it that we here in the United States ignore other countries, Dr. Moskowitz?
Well, I mean, that's a phenomenal difference. I think we in the U.S. ignore lots of things. I think we're one of the best countries at ignoring truth, history, other people. I've never seen a country that's so good at putting blinders on. Maybe it's part of American exceptionalism, the idea that since we've managed to grab, most 70% of the riches of the world, that we don't deserve, that we're the smartest people in the world, but really we're just the most thuggish. And spend the most money on our military. I think there's lots to be learned, and the world could be a whole lot more democratic place. And it's clearly killing us to ignore places where, like Malaysia and India, where the diet alone is keeping people alive. You asked about pizza versus Indian food.
Yeah.
All you have to do is think about the number of victims in northern Italy.
We have to bring Roberto Soprano on, our Indian correspondent, about that one. Yeah, you're right. The deaths in northern Italy were pretty high, but the demographics I've been polling is like New Zealand, where Rakesh is going. They have maybe 100 deaths, but they only have 4 million people. Malaysia has 128 deaths. They have 38 million people. Now, granted, they have a lot more deaths than India, but they have 1.3 billion people, not 300 million. But their death rate is still half that the United States. Dr.
Well, we
Moskowitz.
worked out it's 8 times less.
Yeah. So what gets me is that we purportedly have the best medical system in the world, definitely the most expensive medical system in the world. Yet our results don't show it. I mean, there's no way I can look at the math and say, hey, that's the best, medical system in the world. And that's the thing that really gets me.
No, I think what we should do, I think the nutritional approach to survival, this epidemiologic insight that you've got, is potentially curative. I think we should be copying Malaysian diet.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yes, Rakesh.
Yeah, you have a costly medical system, not the best one. You have a costly medical system. Yeah. If you look at I'm not saying that India has the best one. I'm just saying that countries like the UK and things like that have a far more, far greater cutting edge in medicine. And this is with no disrespect to US doctors. I mean, they're also very dedicated and things like that. But I think there is some nexus in the financials, which is sort of hindering the intelligent effort and hard work of the doctors in the US. There is some nexus which is breaking up and sort of impeding the intelligence that is there in the US from actually manifesting itself into benefits or translating into benefits to the population. You see, the most fantastic research on coronavirus is coming out of UCLA and so many other universities in the US, but somewhere the nexus comes in between and doesn't translate into medical benefit to the people.
Well, isn't the real problem, Dr. Moskowitz, with this is it's cheap and it's not backed by any pharmaceutical company?
Right, and I don't have a salary from UCLA or Harvard. I mean, I went there as a kid to Harvard, but I've dropped off the map. I do have a recipe for dialysis. Take that. Mm-hmm. National Health Service in Canada and Britain have no interest in getting rid of dialysis. WHO has no interest. Medicare has no interest. The point is, Rakesh, that greed is driving healthcare, not public health, and has been for probably the last half century. And so you've got intelligent people who are idealistic when they're in medical school, and they pretty soon learn that if they want to keep their job, they have to do make work in academic medical centers that never changes clinical treatment. That if they're really smart, they'll work with mice, not patients. That only dummies keep seeing patients.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a big divide in academic medicine between the dummies who have to take care of patients and the brilliant ones who get to go to conferences and talk about roundworms and knock in and knock out mice. And the media has no sense of being hoodwinked, because the entire system is conning the public to get them more tax dollars to waste their time on bullshit. And the media goes along with it. Instead of saying, yeah, but my grandfather just died of COVID. How come nobody's solving COVID? Everybody just turns a blind eye. It's how we approach war and empire as well. I mean, we are bamboozled our entire lives.
But isn't it part of the reason media turns the blind eye toward things of this nature like this is if you ever look on media, the commercials are big pharma commercials all the time, Dr. Moskowitz. Yeah. I mean, could you imagine? This is heresy because this is not supported by big pharma, baby. And the thing is, big pharma spends a huge amount of money on media. I mean, all the time I see these ads, and every time I see an ad, they have a new asthma ad, stuff like that. They'll have a new ad on this particular treatment. We know that somebody's spending huge amounts of money putting that ad on the television for consumers to watch. And consumers have no medical background to then go tell their doctors, hey, why don't you treat me with this particular drug? You know, now wait a minute, that all costs a lot of money for big pharma to do that. But here's what our analysis on the media in the United States. 90% of our media is controlled by 5 companies. That's it. So the thing is, the real problem in the media market, and I'm just talking about the United States, I can't say about India, Canada, or some of the other countries, is that it is supported by big pharma as one of their big contributors. You have to imagine that. And that saying things like what you're describing, like, hey, why don't you just do this, is speaking heresy. I just, I can see big media not wanting to talk about simple solutions like that. And I can also tell you in my industry in financial services, it's the same thing. If the financial product is not supported by commissions or fees, it's not discussed. One is Fidelity. I don't know if everybody knows that. Fidelity has funds right now that are no commissions, no fees. No commission, no fee funds are not being sold anywhere in the United States because the producers can't make any. Only registered investment advisors may do that, put them in the accounts because there's asset under management fees. But anytime there's a no fee, no commission product, financial product in the United States, it gets this attention. Well, no fees, no commission here. No fees, no commissions, no attention. Let's throw this away. Yet, I have seen studies that say, hey, this actually worked, which is the reason I bought it, because I'm going like, wait a minute, I don't want to be caught with coronavirus and go see a doctor and says, hey, there's nothing I can do for you. That doesn't seem right. I want to have at least some chance, not no chance at this. And so this looks like a shot. And of course, I have my stack of prednisone back there just in case as well. But other than that, other than you talking about this, everybody else is like, hey, hope you don't die, or we'll put you on a ventilator. What do you think about these ventilators? I looked at the numbers; they didn't seem too good. What do you think about ventilators?
You get on a vent, you're dead. I would love to collaborate with some ICU doc. So far, I haven't been able to, just to see if quercetin pulls you back from the dead. But it's pretty far along when you need a vent. And you can't, it should be dealt with as an outpatient. should be dealt with when you first have nasal congestion or a runny nose.
Yeah. The ventilator, the numbers I've been getting, you're about a 50-50. In other words, the minute you go on a vent, the data says you're half dead. You have a chance, you might get off, but also your mortality just goes up tremendously. And like I said, all I do is I look at the data. Yes, Ankit.
In fact, during the COVID, Dr. Moskovich, a lot of ventilators have not been used, but they have used oxygen mask because that's what more required. And also, we understand that we have very few ventilators as compared to 1,000 people per capita for the ventilation industry. And in India, we have created a lot of ventilators which is under $100. So we have created a ventilator only for like oxygen and stuff like that. So I think we can. This is a new industry coming up, and nowadays, in fact, we have portable ventilators in India where you can put it at your home, and whenever you are at risk, you can just use the ventilator, because most of the time it's more about oxygen, and then rest of the thing will taken care of. If you are serious, then you will have to visit the doctor. But that's what the innovation happened in India. I'm not sure about abroad, but a lot of companies are making ventilators under $100.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, the ventilators are your Hail Mary. In other words, it's the last thing that you do. There has to be a front line. What is the first thing you do? And that's where I'm looking at the prednisone and quercetin as that's the first line of defense, as opposed to the ventilator, which to me is like you're throwing a Hail Mary and you're throwing a 50-50 number out there. And I don't like those. I don't like those odds. When I look at ventilators, I go, that's not a place that I want to spend a lot of time with. But somebody I do want to spend a time with is the medical doctors like, there's Dr. Tula coming in from India.
Good evening. Good evening.
I've learned
Good morning to Nick and
yes.
all the people from that part of the world, and it's good evening to Rakesh ji, Ankit, and myself.
Yeah, we were talking about something that just recently happened here, Dr. Tula, and I know it's your national holiday, right? Today over in India, your holiday, Dr. Tula. Can you hear me?
Can you hear us, sir?
Yeah, I can.
It's a holiday over there, yes? Holiday?
National holiday in India. That's what Nick wants to know from you. What is 2nd October?
So the world knows that. I don't need to dwell on it further. But in India, across the world, Mahatma Gandhi is one of the, I would say, the man of the entire, generations and generations. You have, he is no less than any of the great men mankind has produced. And I believe so. And there is another one of our former prime ministers, Lal Bahadur Shastri. So he gets little belittled under the weight of Mahatma Gandhi, but he was no less when it comes to the Indian context. So he is very widely respected. And the interesting part about him, which I think Nick will be very interested in knowing, is that you would not believe that he died a pauper. So he did not own a vehicle. He did not have any vehicle also when he died. So this is the kind of austerity measures he used to follow. So there was a saying that to ensure that Gandhi remains Gandhi, a lot of money goes behind him. But Lal Bahadur Shastri was the epitome of Gandhism in his own self-right self. So he was very self-righteous, and he was an absolute honest politician, and very well respected in Indian, history of politics.
Okay, did you say honest and politician in two words together?
Yes.
You put honest together with politician. Okay.
We had them at one time. Yes.
You had one.
There were more than a few, but after Mr. Shastri, I think it just.
Yeah. So if Nick, you will be very surprised that if you look at the Indian history, I'm sure Rakesh ji will also give his comments. I think the post-partition cabinet of India was one of the finest I've seen all across. Even in the history of Indian politics. So you had luminaries in that cabinet, and they themselves were an institution in themselves, right? So there was no dearth of talent at that time, and they were all well read and visionaries in their own right. I've never seen that kind of cabinet happening after that. I mean, we are in absolutely awe of them, and they were all very, very honest, visionary people. And they, as we consider them to be the founding members of our India, the modern India. See, we may differ with their ideology at that time. If we were to introspect and see at their time, I think they were far, far ahead of their time.
Certainly.
Yeah, and
So,
we're
I
trying
think
to.
I have a small video about Gandhiji which I would like to play so that viewers would know what's happening and who was Gandhiji and what is the story all about. So I just play that video.
Yeah, these are for our other 122 countries.
Yeah.
Students, today I'm going to take a very important chapter. You know what it is? It's about our national leaders. Mohan, listen.
Ma'am, first you're going to tell us
About our national leader Mahatma Gandhi ji. You are right. Let's see. Let me show you some of the important pictures of these leaders. His full name is Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. He was a victorious, non-violent fighter.
non-violent means?
It means without hurting anyone or not involving in violence. Do you know where he was born? In Porbandar. Correct. He was born on 2nd October 1869. After his school studies, he went to England to study law when he was 18. In that case, he was a lawyer. Yes, he was a popular lawyer and practiced law for 3 years in India and 20 years in South Africa. I will narrate few incidents that happened in his life. Once, when Gandhi ji was in school, an educational inspector visited the school.
Now I'll give you some English words. Everyone should write it.
While writing, Mohan did not know the spelling for a word.
Mohan, if you do not know, copy from your friend.
But Mohan did not like to copy. Everyone has written all words except Mohan. Teacher scolded him. Though he felt sad, he thought what he had done was right. In another incident, once Mohan started smoking. For that purpose, he started to take loan and steal. The loan amount increased. To repay the loan, he stole a piece of gold from his brother's jewel and repaid the loan. But he felt guilty for what he had done. From that day, he decided not to steal and he wrote everything what he had done on a piece of paper and gave it to his father who was in his deathbed. When his father read it, he tore the paper without uttering a word. Mohan felt terribly sad and tears rolled down. From that day, he decided only to speak the truth. When he was in South Africa, an incident occurred which changed the life of Gandhi. In South Africa, Indians were treated very badly. Indians will be called as coolie. One day, Gandhi was traveling in a train in first class. A European who boarded the same compartment
Push out this coolie.
A guard pushed him out.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to write essays that inspire, messages that forge brighter connections, and emails that get the
He stayed there throughout that cold night. This incident seeded the thought of Satyagraha in his mind. Next day, when he continued his journey, he sat behind the coachman to avoid further problems. But when an officer arrived there,
Get down. Sit on that luggage.
Gandhiji refused. The officer started beating him while other passengers interfered and made Gandhi to sit behind the coachman. Following this incident, Gandhi called for a public meeting and wished to start a committee. This brought awareness among the people. He followed non-violence and Satyagraha and got freedom for India.
Mahatma Gandhi, father of the nation. An epitome of non-violence and patriotism, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi led the nation and secured independence for India. He studied law in England and became a barrister. Before he left for England, he promised his mother three things. He would not touch non-vegetarian food, he would not look at any woman with lust, and he would not touch alcohol. In 1893, he left for South Africa to argue a case. On the way in the train, he was thrown out and insulted for daring to travel as a co-passenger of a white man. When he went to South Africa, he witnessed the sad plight of the Indians there who had gone as laborers. To protest against oppression of the Indians and of unjust laws, Gandhiji started Satyagraha in 1915. He returned to India, studied the Indian environment for a year, and decided to jump into the freedom struggle. Champaran in Bihar was the first test case of Satyagraha. The government was compelled to look into the matter of injustice meted out to the poor indigo planters. This made Gandhiji more popular. Gradually, he became the leader of the leaders. Gandhiji infused in the masses a spirit of fearlessness and the will to stand against any repression, whether it was lathi charge or firing or the passing of the Rowlatt Act in 1919 was for the arbitrary arrest and imprisonment of the nationalists. Gandhiji launched an anti-Rowlatt satyagraha on a mass scale. Two leaders, Dr. Saifuddin Kichlu and Dr. Satyapal, led to the protests and the British banned public meetings. In 1919, unaware of this ban at Jallianwala Bagh, the people of Amritsar held a meeting to protest the arrest. General Dyer blocked the escape route and ordered indiscriminate shooting. Hundreds of people were trapped and killed. The whole nation was in shock. After the First World War, Britain imposed humiliating terms on Sultan of Turkey, who was the Caliph of the Islam. This angered the Muslims who started Khilafat movement against the Caliph. When violence broke out in Chauri Chaura, Gandhiji suspended the non-cooperation movement. He was arrested. Congress members Rajendra Prasad, C. Rajagopalachari, C.R. Das, and Motilal Nehru gave full support to Gandhiji. In 1927, the Simon Commission constituted to review the Government of India Act of 1919. No Indian member was included in the commission. The Congress adopted complete independence as its goal. Jawaharlal Nehru, who was the president of Congress, adopted the resolution of Purna Swaraj. Gandhiji started civil disobedience movement. As the first step, Dandi March followed. This was to break the unjust law that stopped people from making salt. The salt satyagraha was meant
कितना कुछ है हमारे आसपास जिससे सबसे बुना जाता है बना
to unite people. By the Salt March, Gandhiji wanted people to know that there were very many poor people who could not afford to buy even a pinch of salt. Dundee and other Indian coasts had free salt, but it was banned to be used by an Indian. So Gandhiji made salt at Dundee. British again arrested Gandhiji. Sarojini Naidu then led the Satyagraha. Abbas Tyabji helped Mrs. Sarojini Naidu. Even women stepped out of their houses to support the movement. When the Round Table Conference bore no positive results, Gandhiji decided to relaunch the movement. Fearing the West, British arrested him. Indian National Congress was branded as illegal. To make matters worse, the British brought out the communal award, whereby the untouchables would be given separate treatment from their higher caste Hindus. They were given the right to choose their representatives through elections. This right the British had already given to the Muslims. Thus, 3 voting lists came up. The divide and rule policy thus further divided Hindus into 2 groups. Dr. Ambedkar, though initially believed that political concessions would yield better results for the untouchables, later came around to accept Gandhiji's views. Gandhiji went on a fast against the communal award. Ultimately, Gandhiji's fast led to the provision of a joint electorate for all Hindus with a reservation of seats for depressed classes. Gandhiji named the untouchables as Harijans, or the people of God. The Harijan movement had its headquarters at Sabarmati Ashram. A unique personality, Gandhiji preached what he practiced. Simple living and high thinking were his basic beliefs. He believed in non-violence in thoughts, words, and actions. He said that the violence is the law of the jungle. Ahimsa, or non-violence, was the sole power, he said. He wanted to popularize Khadi. He could totally and easily identify himself with the poor, illiterate masses. Their problem was his problem. Throughout his life, his main support was his wife, Kasturba. You can beat or lathi charge a person when he or she reacts to your insult. But what will you do if the victims of your lathi charge keep quiet with fortitude and courage? This is what happened against the British. In 1942, when Japan threatened to attack India, Gandhiji called for a nationwide satyagraha. He asked the British to quit India and called out to the people to do or die. This united the Indians. Muhammad Ali Jinnah wanted a separate state for the Muslims. One more fighter, Subhash Chandra Bose, who believed in the use of force to get freedom, organized the Indian National Army. He died in an air crash. India became independent on 15th August 1947, while the entire nation was enjoying its newfound freedom. The man most responsible for it, Mahatma Gandhi, was away in Calcutta comforting the victims of Hindu-Muslim clashes. The apostle of peace that he is, Gandhiji vowed to bring together the Hindus and the Muslims. But on January 30th, 1948, he was shot dead while he was on his way to evening prayers in Delhi. Gandhiji lived and died for the country. Bapu, as he is known, is rightly remembered as the father of the nation.
Gandhi-Irvine Pact, 1931. As a result, in 1931, the Gandhi-Irvine Pact was signed. According to this pact, the civil disobedience movement was suspended, and the Congress decided to attend the next Round Table Conference on the condition of release of all political prisoners and withdrawal of the Salt Law. The Second Round Table Conference.
And in the United States, I believe that they didn't even mention this was a holiday. We got nothing at all here, Ankit. So
You will be very surprised. Martin Luther King, he was one of the great opponents of the Gandhian thought process. So he was very inspired by this. Nelson Mandela, also in his archives, has mentioned that he was very influenced by the Gandhian way. Of course, that would have been the case because he started his movements in South Africa. But this is the kind of influence he had.
In fact, there's one more thing, sir. I mean, you'll find Gandhi's, sculpture and, maybe museum and stuff like that around the world. It's not just in India, but there are a lot of people who is, they have those Gandhi sculpture. In fact, Nick, in India, we used to call a lifestyle of Gandhi, which is known as Gandhigiri, and we used to, people follow it up in some form or the other and make sure that if someone slaps you, you just give the other cheek that okay, slap on this one as well, and make sure that you humbly say that thank you very much and stuff like that. So he's against non-violence, and that's what we are working Indians to be like that.
Well, definitely not somebody in the United States, but that's another story. You know,
Yeah.
there was a movie on Gandhi, and the movie won the Academy Award that year. That's about all Americans know about Gandhi is the movie Gandhi. So Ben Kingsley was the star of the movie Gandhi, and I remember watching that movie and I thought, oh, that was pretty cool, you know. But in terms of like all the history you just showed me and Kit, we don't get any of that over here. I mean, come on, all that stuff that he went through. Nah, they don't discuss that. That's not it. Now we are discussing coronavirus, and Dr. Tula, Dr. Moskowitz, who left us with this. And he has used this successfully, but this is not a drug. This is like a vitamin, isn't it, quercetin? Anyway, he's been using that successfully on his patients. What are they doing in India when somebody has coronavirus, like Donald Trump?
So, Nick, first of all, before I answer your question, I just want to give you an insight. So, I was traveling to the state of Punjab for the last 3 days, and I was absolutely aghast at the indifference of people when it came to taking precautions. Because in the streets, there were only 10 to 15% people who were wearing masks, and out of that 10-15% also, they had masks which was dangling below the nose and sometimes dangling on the chin. So my humble request through your channel is, and hand folded request to people all across the globe, including my beloved country of India, is mask is your vaccine. Please mask, because if you are not going to do it, I can assure you we are going to go from bad to worse. I really believe this is high time we take that precaution into our mind and we don't become complacent. I really believe at the end of the day, see, politicians and politics will survive.
True.
It is more important that you take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So please understand that it's very important that we take care. So I am again and again requesting people that please don't take it lightly. This is a disease. You may have doctors who will have contrary point of view. They may tell you that okay, this is just a mild flu and all that. So I don't want to alarm you, but I'm just telling you, even if that 1%, and unfortunately, if you are within that 1% who's bound to get complication, I think all hell is going to break loose on you and your family. So if you love your family, you love and respect your near and dear ones, take care and just mask up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the data that we're getting, though, Dr. Tula, as people age or they have pre-existing conditions or they have obesity or diabetes, asthma, that the mortality statistics are much greater than 1%. They go like 5, 10%, 15%. I mean, they're pretty huge mortality statistics. Yet what I've seen also in the United States, because our states are different, there's one state where I'm from in Florida, the governor goes, well, only a very small percentage die. Go ahead and open up, do whatever you want. Government's not going to do anything about enforcing masks, asking you to wear masks, asking you to socially distance, or do anything at all. So in Florida, and I've heard some people on Facebook goes, well, very few people die anyway, that their response is they're not going to do anything. What are your thoughts on totally ignoring it because, who cares?
So, Nick, again, I'm telling you, I will not get caught in the political debate of it because, see, politicians are politicians, right? So, I unfortunately don't have the greatest of respect for them except the couple of few which I enumerated beforehand, right?
Yeah.
And so my only request is that if you fall ill, what happens? Does that politician come and offer you solace? He comes into your house, takes care of you, right? Or goes and puts your bill in the hospital. So my question is very pointed and straight away, right? So you need to have the brains to understand that. And please understand the politicians, see, they have vested interest in their mind, and it's not about a vested interest. See, economy is also paramount. So I'm just telling open up. There's no problem in opening up. But maintain precaution. And the most important thing is absolutely, you have to fear this disease. Don't take it lightly by saying that, okay, we don't have nothing to fear.
Hmm. Right.
It's,
Yeah.
it's not a bug which is going to show compassion.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean,
Gandhi
I always have
compassion is
I
not
have
going to
my
show.
mask.
Yeah, so it's very important that we understand that this bug is not going to be compassionate.
Right.
So we should know our enemy and we should respect our enemy.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, we have to subsist and exist with this virus. So the best way of doing it is to maintain distance from this virus and ensure that we do not as act as a chain carrier or a transmitter of this disease.
Hmm. Yes. Yes,
In
Ankit.
fact, Dr. Jula, Indian Medical Association, they have released a list of 500 plus doctors who have been, sacrificed their life during the COVID era. So, do you have that news that how many doctors have been, suffering from COVID and how many lost their life? And also, there is also one news about Reliance that Reliance had prepared a PCR kit, which is helping us to get the results within 2 hours. So, I just
See,
wanted to know.
Ankit, what I'm trying to tell you is you will have antigen-based kits also, which are going to give you a result within half an hour to 45 minutes, right? My question is, even if that is there, well and good. See, you will have politics around it. There will be, states who will not be testing enough because there is this number game going around. Unfortunately, that's the reality, harsh reality of life, that everyone wants to be last in this game, right? So they don't want to be the number one state showing highest number of prevalence because then it does a bad PR for them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have to accept it and we have to move on away from them. My only request to my countrymen and the nation, as well as people listening to us worldwide, is that you need to understand that you are the only one who has to bear the brunt of this disease. No one will stand to you for that except your immediate family or your
So,
immediate friend circle. So my request is don't get drawn into that. Just small common sense three methods, that is mask, distancing and washing, right? So we call them M, we call them D, we call them W. So MDW. These are the three things which you have to do.
Hmm.
And it's not rocket science, it's very simple. We need to just instill that behavioral change in ourselves. And please understand that we should not be, complacent. Again and again, I'm telling that, repeating it again and again to everyone, because ultimately we must remember, as Orient Longman said about men and women, he said that a woman's cause is a man's cause because they rise and sink together. So we need to understand that we cannot be in self isolation. We as a
yeah.
community have to fight this together.
Hmm. Yeah.
No, I think very well said by Dr. Tula, and I think we are just have to follow these basic practices to make sure that we can prevent the virus and we can still live a healthy life and make sure that our neighborhood and our family and our people also protected. Because it's been like 6 months and people are still not serious. And now, in fact, people say that COVID will happen and we will just take care of it, no problem. But they don't understand that they can spread the COVID virus as well, and that's what happening in India right now because we were a little down earlier, a couple of months, but now again. It's like 80,000 plus people. As per the official reports are coming up. So I think we still have a long way to go. But I'm also, reading a lot of articles around the world, and a lot of doctors are suggesting that we have to follow these practices for next couple of years. It's not just for a couple of months. If we follow the couple of years, then also we will have to get ourselves protected because a lot of people have their different allergies and they have different disease, and some are having chronic disease as well, and they might be having these issues in future as well. And vaccine is still not a solution for us. So we have to make sure that the mask, washing hands, and following the right practices will make us preventing from COVID-19.
See, mask is a kind of vaccine only because see what happens is that see we're wearing a mask, even if we're exposed to a COVID patient, the viral intake or the viral load which you are going to be exposed to is going to be less. So there is a
Yeah,
chance that you will have a suboptimal exposure and your body will react to it and give antibodies and kind of give you a kind of a makeshift cover against this virus for a period of a month or 2 months or 3 months, whatever the time period the antibodies take. So it is very important that we understand and keep cognizance of the fact and try to understand this mask is a kind of vaccine for you. And even if the vaccine comes, what is the guarantee that you will have? See, you need to understand it will be a hurried vaccine.
True.
So it's not a vaccine which is going to take years and years of practice, and we will have 100% security with the vaccine. So the vaccine may have a 50% compliance, may have a 70% compliance, but what about that 30%? Suppose you are in that 30%, then what happens?
Well, then you get COVID-19. I mean, the vaccine, they said, may not be 100% effective, may only be 70% effective, or maybe even 50% effective, which means you're back to where you started from, where you have to wear a mask, socially distance. They're also saying wear eye protection. I wear my natural eye protection because COVID-19 apparently goes through your eyes as well. But what Ankit's saying, which I find very interesting, Ankit, is that even once the vaccine comes out, it's not going to be over. It looks like you're saying you got to wear the mask after the vaccine is out. In other words, this thing isn't just going to go away. Would that be correct, Ankit?
So
why is he telling that? Because please remember that if you want that all the mankind on this earth has to be vaccinated, do you really think it is going to happen less than a year or 1.5 years? It's not going to happen within that period of time. Mm-hmm. And then you will open up everything. You will again be traveling from one country to another.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we stand up with on that? We come down to the whole circle.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
there is one more news which I've read that to produce 7.5 billion vaccines for like 2 doses, we need around 5 years. It's not happening in like 7.5 billion doses, and because as per the reports, I'm not sure Dr. Tula must be aware about it, that one vaccine is not enough. One dose is not enough.
And at the moment,
yes, sir.
Yeah, at the moment, the 2 vaccines which are being tested in India, one is the Oxford one, which is with the Serum Institute, and then we have the Bharat Biotech, which ICMR has taken over, right? That is with AstraZeneca, I presume, right? So the initial reports, which are basically anecdotal reports, and last time also I told, and I'll be very clear, they're anecdotal because we don't have people coming out and specifying. But the kind of reports, the initial reports which are coming out is that they will give an immunity for 2 months to maximum 3 months. So you're again back in the cycle again. And that too, there is going to be a lag period of around 24 to 28 days before the vaccine kicks off with the immunity.
That doesn't sound very promising. 2 months to 3 months. Yeah.
And I'll give you another insight. So what happened was that Serum Institute of India did a trial with BCG also. So they have done a controlled trial with BCG. Most probably they are going to release the report of the trial also within a couple of months, I guess. So the BCG vaccine also was not. It's not a great. It has not done excellent, I presume, anecdotal reports which I have received.
Yeah.
In fact, there is one more thing, Nick. There are a lot of airports who are preparing for the vaccine test, for the COVID test as well as the vaccine in future, because they believe that when people transit from one to the other, the testing should be done on a regular basis for next couple of years. And also, as of now, there is no vaccine, but they wanted to vaccinate, or they should know that when you had a vaccine done, because they are very concerned about their people as well. Because if you're traveling from US to India, so in US you have to submit the papers, and then Indian immigration, they will cross check, and then they will allow you to be a part of they will welcome you in India. Otherwise, you have to get that test done and all those stuff at the airport itself. I don't know, but I'm in touch with a lot of people who are working on the airport medical infrastructure, and they are trying to work it out. In fact, at one of the countries, I don't remember the name, they have started doing this as well. Taking the test and also trying to give some basic vaccines before they enter you in your country. So I think there are a lot of different norms coming up.
It will come down to execution. The developed nations are going to execute very well. What happens to the developing and the underdeveloped countries? The kind of the kind of infrastructure, the kind of complacency which they have, and of course sometimes They don't even have the desired kind of, bandwidth to do all of this. So you will have inconsistencies creeping in, and we will
Yep.
again be caught in this triangle. Because you cannot basically, as America, you're used to a certain kind of, work culture and work ethics and all that, right? And the kind of expertise which you're going to have. Somebody sitting in Africa is not going to have that same. So what are we going to do then?
Certainly.
So it sounds to me that this thing is not going to go away next year, like magic. I was heard from our leader, they say like magic, it's just going to go away. Then I don't know if you know, Dr. Tula, the president just got caught with the coronavirus. Did you hear about that? President of the
Yeah,
United
so
States.
it was front page news in India today, I guess. I'm so sorry for him, and I hope he and his wife recover. But it just tells you, see what he was doing all along.
Mm-hmm. So the thing is, you
So
think
I
not?
don't want to say that, but please understand. See, his positioning on this was absolutely, haywire from day one. And in fact, I would like to name another politician on this, who is Mr. Johnson.
Johnson.
Right.
Yes, he also doesn't seem to have learned his after burning his fingers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
Yeah.
I saw some pictures of him moving around without mask. I don't know whether they were from very recent or whether they were old. But if they were new, I was extremely appalled, and I would request them that they. He is already been in the ICU for 3-4 days, received supportive care. He has seen what this disease can do, and if he still continues to go in the same way, then God bless him. I can't say more than that.
Mm-hmm. And also the president of Brazil also had coronavirus, and he didn't treat it. But here's the difference: they're both much younger than Donald Trump. Donald Trump's 74 years old and obese. So isn't his prognosis a lot worse if you're 74 and obese rather than you're under 65 like the other two and
Nick,
not obese?
it will be, there is no doubt about it, but you need to understand that the whole machinery will be behind him.
Mm-hmm.
So please understand that a president of a country or a prime minister of a country, you will have a battery of doctors looking into every step of his. But does this happen with the common person on the street? So that's why I'm telling you that we need to differentiate this. See, there are privileged people and there are lesser privileged people. Lesser privileged people really need to buck up themselves and need to be very careful. What I've seen in India is that the privileged people are taking care of themselves, but the lesser privileged people seem to be throwing caution in the wind.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because the thing is, we're very at
They
least.
They will if they get the disease and they're hospitalized, they will burn a great hole in their pockets.
Right. Yeah,
financially also burdened, and emotionally, psychologically also they will be burdened. And even if they get out of the disease, post healing period also is going to be absolutely, they'll be weak and all that. So they will lose revenue also during that period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So the people that. Yeah, the people that should be cautious apparently are not cautious about this at all, and they really should be, because they're not going to be able to access the best healthcare. But we're very cautious because I look at it this way: healthcare has a hard time solving this. So the only thing that you got to me, you have to do everything you can possibly do to prevent getting it to begin with, and then do everything you can once you get it. But I just don't see that attitude. There's a lot of people, or at least in this country, that go, "If I die, I die. I don't care." But why do they have that type of attitude, Dr. Tula?
So see, what happens is over a period of time you get frustrated, right? Because we understand that man is a social animal. See, with this freedom culture coming in, people are used to going out, opening out, having a good time. We need to understand that. Please understand that what are important to you. Is life more important to you at the moment, or roaming around here and there? So my only request to people is that if they have a dire requirement to go out, they should. I'm not saying that don't go outside, but when you are out, you have to treat and presume that every person you are crossing across is corona positive. If you get that in your mind, you will take the precautions and be wary of it. If you're not going to do that, unfortunately you'll end up in a doldrum.
Right. Yeah, and the thing is, something incredibly bad can actually happen. And I also think people have very short memories, or maybe they don't know how hard it is that when their lungs collapse and they can't breathe. Being an asthmatic, I've had that experience. It is not fun. Okay. Not being able to breathe is not a fun thing. So I'm very sensitive to this coronavirus because apparently it does attack your lungs. And if it attacks your lungs, it can be a very painful experience. But I just don't get that there's a lot of people out there go, hey, I'll shake it off. How are you going to be able to shake this thing off? I just don't see, at least the evidence that I get shows that you're not going to be able to just shake it off. Do you have patients with attitudes that say, hey, look, I'll just shake it off if I get it? Or is that what you're seeing over in India?
Dr. Tula, can you hear us? I think we lost the connection.
I think Dr. Tula just froze up. But
Yeah.
but Ankit, is that what's going on over there in the continent right now?
Yeah, so there are a lot of people. I mean, you know that. I mean, there are different kinds of people in community in India as well. And when we have 1.3 billion people, that means there are different perceptions of people around it. And as Dr. Tula said that in one of the states in Punjab, I mean, people are not wearing masks. So people are very careless as well. I mean, there's a mix of reaction. In fact, a lot of people initially they said that it's more about the conspiracy theories going on from China. And now it's nothing like over like fortnight everything will be solved and it's a magical thing and all this stuff. But suddenly when we see a lot of deaths, I mean people are scared. But now it's a mixed thing. I mean people are going out, they're taking the precautions. They think that it won't happen to them and it will happen to someone else, and they are very immune and stuff like that. So there are a lot of mixed reactions going around. But we are still in the COVID pandemic. We have to realize that and make sure whatever you do, you have to be very careful planning it out, and especially when you have people in your family who are like 60 years old, and you have young kids and people with different chronic and other diseases, because that will definitely I mean be a disaster. In fact, when Dr. Kula said, I mean, if suppose someone had a COVID and they have a more than mild symptoms, so the cost of the treatment is pretty high in hospitals in India. Instead, if you don't work for like a couple of months, that's fine, because it's difficult for, and then also you don't know whether you'll be survive or not. Because I, in fact, a lot of people I know who had COVID, and the issue is that they are still recovering after 3 months. They are not yet recovered properly, although they are negative in terms of COVID, but they are facing with a lot of other, diseases. They are not fit as of now. I mean, they still struggle with their smell and things like that. So, I mean, they feel that it's still there, but it's not there in the form of the infection, but it's harming the body or organ at some point of time. So, I think Dr. Tula can elaborate in much more.
So see, any viral disease, when you have of time period before you get back to normal, right? This happens with all viral diseases like chikungunya, like dengue, right? And all kinds of virus. Even if an influenza virus, you have a little bit of a period of time where it takes time to remember. Now the problem here now with this virus is it's a novel virus, it's a new virus. So it's an evolving virus. We are not very sure how much time it is going to take for people to recover. So what happens, and there is a psychological because people are afraid when they have this virus, they have a near death experience. So I mean, it's a psychological thing also. It takes some time, plus the amount of damage it has done to your internal organs. So of course there is going to be a time period, and I have got friends from doctor communities who have told me very clearly who got infected, unfortunately. So they are still telling me that it has been 2 months down the line, and they have recovered, but the recovery has not been up to the level where they were when they contracted this virus. So it's been a painful recovery for them. So that's why I'm trying to tell you. And in fact, I have a urologist friend who was infected. So he got his antibody status done in his 3rd month. This is his 3rd month, and he said that virtually the antibodies were gone. So that means that the infection is not a guarantee to, I mean, inducing antibodies for a prolonged period.
Yes.
And you had one Lancet report also which came that in certain people they've seen, in doctors especially, that the initial an infection was not that severe, but when they got reinfected, it was an extremely severe, I mean, on kind storm which they had, and they were virtually ended up in ICUs. So this concept also that if you have an initial infection, the second infection is not going to be in the wastebasket now. So no one knows. I mean, it's anyone's guess.
Yes, and Mark Lee has just joined us from the Mark Lee Radio Hour. Namaste, Mark. I don't know if you got the big news is
I did
President
hear the big
Trump
news today.
and Melania Trump just got infected with COVID-19. And Dr. Moskowitz was on earlier today and said, well, because he's treated a lot of patients, he goes, first couple days, they're sick, but then he goes, by next week, he said, which they will know how sick you actually get. And then the next week after, you go into recovery. And he says, and the full effects will be known probably at the end of the month by Donald Trump and Melania Trump. Now, if that's true, Mark, what happens to this election and debates? Is this over?
Well, that's what I was wondering about as well.
Sasha said that the betting line in London, they actually bet on the elections, on Trump Biden just got pulled. There is no betting line anymore. So I'm serious. In other words, it's over. So Mark, is it over? Is that what's going on? Is this election over?
I don't know if the election's over or not, because I mean, I heard what Dr. Tula was saying and everything, and I definitely have heard the same thing from some of my friends that are in the medical profession and things of that nature. It'll be really interesting because, as I understand it, and I actually went through some of the COVID training and COVID testing to be a contact tracer, is that there is that 10-day period, there's that 14-day period, and things of that nature. So depending on how it goes with the quarantine, they might try to have a debate. Remember, these debates can also be held virtually. So maybe we're going to have a virtual debate because that would still fall within the confines of that initial quarantine. Am I not correct in thinking that? I think that's the way that I've always heard it in the USA is that you got 10 days to 14 days, and the debate is supposed to be on the 15th, if I remember correctly.
Well, Ankit said he's going to create a digital twin. Yeah. So he'll have a computer Trump that will be debating.
Nick, it's like an AR VR. You just have to put a digital twin which looks like Trump, and then Trump can do a podcast sitting at home wherever he wants to, and then he still do a debate. We see why I'm telling you that, because your presidential debates are very important and very popular around the world, and right. If it's not happening, you are losing something, and then after that people will also say that Trump won because there were no debates and stuff like that. So that anything can be possible. But to make sure that it happens, we still have a technology where both the people can be available at certain point, and they'll be at their home, and then the debate can happen as usually as they can.
Oh, really? So you can actually have a digital twin, and if you do it on IBM TV, we have a mute button.
Yeah, we've got the mute button, but there's also one other problem, Nick. There's also one other problem, Nick. But as I recall it, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I know Bill was on a bunch of our shows earlier and everything, but if I remember correctly, did this current person that's now quarantined in 1600 say that it was a hoax? So can it be a hoax if you're part of the hoax? So like I said, I think that his whole theory has been exploded now because he's the one that initially said that it could have been a hoax or that it wasn't as bad as people thought it was. So definitely, I think that if there's a debate, that would be the first thing that I would throw out as Biden. I'd be like, wait a minute. You were sick with the disease, but you said that the disease didn't exist. So how are you sick with a disease that doesn't exist?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a debate because I think next week he's going to get real sick. He is in that demographic group that is highly susceptible to COVID-19. Over age 65, he's close to age 75, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. And the mortality, I watch, running an actuarial firm, and we do a lot of life insurance. Okay. We look at mortality statistics all the time back in our office in Salt Lake. It's the most boring thing in the world to do, is to sit and crunch these mortality statistics and numbers. But what happens as you get older, his mortality goes up tremendously on the COVID-19. In other words, in the data that we get from the older people is so bad that a lot of the insurance companies they work with will not sell life insurance to that group because the mortality statistics are off the charts. So I see him in that high risk category, and that I think next week.
Two high risk categories. Two high risk categories.
And what are the two risks,
he
Mark?
is also slightly, and I can talk because I've got to lose some weight as well. But he has also been diagnosed as being at least borderline, if not all the way, overweight and everything.
Yeah,
so he's actually
obesity,
part of
right.
two categories.
Right. Obesity plus age.
Right.
And so he has two. Apparently, the rest of his health is okay, but those two create two factors. And what I think is next week, you're going to see a lot of stuff coming out of the White House. It could be not good. I mean, and that's the reason it wasn't Vegas, because they don't bet on the presidential race on Vegas, but they do in London. According to Sasha, he goes, they pulled all the bets off on the Trump-Biden race. They had it neck and neck, and now it's gone. It's over.
So,
I
Nick,
would like to know.
can I ask you a question, Nick?
Pardon?
So this first presidential debate, how many days prior did that happen, sir?
It was 3 days ago. I think it was Wednesday.
So what about Joe Biden?
A good question. Good question.
So they must be. They must have shook hands after.
No,
the
they did not
debate.
shake hands. They did not shake hands. They were distant.
They were like here, and they might be having a backhand. Backstage shake hands or something like that. But I'm concerned about a big team, because whenever they travel, they have a big team which travels with them. So
all have quarantine now. So what happens to Joe Biden? Does he quarantine also?
No, because he was distanced from them, and what they're going to do is test him. I'm sure he's going to be tested. Yeah. But what they did in the debates, they never shook hands. They never came close to each other. They were distanced to begin with. So they were far enough away, we believe, that he probably was not infected by the Donald. But the Donald could have been infected at the time of the debates. That's true. The debates really weren't debates, though. What happened is one person talked, the other person over talked, and you couldn't hear anybody. I saw that.
We're not sure what that was, but it definitely was not a debate. Way back in the Ice Ages, that's what it was when I was in high school back in the 70s. That was the Ice Ages. I was a member of the debate club, and I can tell you, I know what a debate looks like. That was not a debate at all. So it was something totally different than a debate, but that was way back in the Ice Ages. So I know how a debate is supposed to look, and it's supposed to look like it would happen on IBM.TV, where we would hit the mute button and do things along those lines. So it did not look like a debate at all. One of the things that they have said in the media, and I have been watching a little bit of the media coverage, is that it was a very confined space that President Trump and the First Lady, as well as a number of other folks, were in, including, I believe, all of his children. Was that it was that they think that it may have happened, the passing of the coronavirus on the plane, which all the presidents get and everything, right, because they were traveling on that plane. And I think there were, Nick, about 25 or 30 people on that plane. There was like some of the top aides, including Steve, I forget Steve's last name, but he's one of the top political aides, and Rudolph Giuliani, who is former mayor of New York City, and a number of other folks. So all of those folks are being tested, and some of them are waiting for results in that nature. And of course, the places where they went, because they also went to a rally. I forget where that rally was at.
It was up in, I think, Minnesota or Wisconsin, somewhere up there.
Like that, somewhere in the Midwest. And so they're checking with the folks at the rally, as well as a number of places. One of the things that they noticed was that they were saying that Hope, I can't think, Hope Hicks is the name, I believe it is.
Yeah, it was Hope Hicks, right?
She said that Hope Hicks who was a leading aide and all of President Trump, that she was seen several times not wearing a mask, as was President Trump, the First Lady, and a number of others. Whereas you were talking about Joe Biden, that whole camp was apparently also masked up. So they were masked up during the whole time of the debate and things of that nature. So they're thinking that a lot of the infection occurred among this group that did not want to follow protocol and do the mask.
Yeah, and I think Joe Biden needs to wear protective eye gear and a mask at all times if he wants to be president of the United States, because even if he wins the election, he's got to survive till January to be inaugurated. And I'm not going to say it's the easiest thing in the world to do, but when you're president, you're always out meeting and greeting people. and he doesn't have any eye covering. He needs to get eye covering. There was another statistic that we read in our actuarial firm. Only 6% of the people that had glasses had COVID-19, a very small percentage if they wear glasses. And they said the reason we believe, again, this is empirical evidence, is that your eyeglasses actually protect the infiltration of COVID-19 into your body. So Joe, who should wear his mask, he's got to wear his mask like this, right? But put some eye protection on as well, because he doesn't wear any eye protection, I noticed. So if I was his advisor, and I'm not his advisor, but if I was, I would say, Joe, you want to be president? You need to live. That's all you have to do. Live. Okay, because it looks like the other guy is going to have a hard time with that one. Okay, but to live, you need to have something like this going on. And then the odds of you surviving increase dramatically, which is what Dr. Tula is saying. The studies that we've received show that with a mask, this, and your other person, let's say Ankit's wearing a mask in this, even if we're in close proximity, the odds drop from 100% down to 1.5%. I mean, unbelievable, great news. That's even if we're in close proximity. If we're far enough away, it goes down next to zero. So, Dr. Tula, what you're saying, at least all the actuarial studies I've been getting on this, because our life insurance companies do not like paying death claims, okay? They say, wear the mask, put the eyeglasses on, or put this on, and stay away from people, and your mortality drops. Yes, Ankit.
In fact, Nick, Joe Biden is also on the list of senior citizen, and also he is also on that people list where they can get virus easily because of the health and wealth. I'm not sure whether Joe Biden is having some kind of health issue, but I'm also concerned about the top cabinet, which would be the next cabinet of America, because those people also have to be cautious and they have to be precautive, and they have to be ready for January. That's very important. But I have a question for you. That there was a discussion about ballot paper voting and stuff like that. So what's happening in that sense? And if you have a ballot voting, how much time you take to count that vote? And if someone recounted, because I checked out the history of America, it happened once, and when someone recounted the vote, it takes like almost a month, and that means Trump will get more time, and then he can do a lot of other stuff as well, which he's not doing right now.
Right. Actually, in some states, because all the states are different, with the state I came from in Washington, you only voted by mail. There was no other choice. They set up the whole system, so we voted by mail. Okay, and we sent it in. Then they run it through their scanners and they double check it, and you're done. They'll have the results the next day. But here's the problem. Other states are just getting to this whole concept of voting by mail. So they're a little slower at the technology and developing it to make sure people can vote by mail. I've already voted by mail. So, as a matter of fact, I already voted in the election, so I'm done. Because in North Carolina, where I live now, you can vote by mail. There's no real problem with it. This whole fraud thing is basically fabricated by certain individuals up in Washington, D.C., and I beat on Bill Trezevant, our Washington correspondent, about the fabrication of fraud. Is there fraud? Yes, there's fraud in every system. Is it totally almost insignificant? The answer is yes, it's insignificant. In other words, it's not even statistically significant or even close. So it was fabricated. For what purpose, I'm not really sure of. It could be because certain things can discourage people from voting. In other words, I can't get to the polls. Or in North Carolina, they did something they didn't do in Washington. In North Carolina, you have to have a witness sign, and that creates a barrier or possibly a mistake. In Washington State, you didn't need a witness. You just send your ballot in, boom. They double check it on the rules. They run it through the computer system, and you're done. I mean, it's easy. So what has happened, it's more of a fabrication by one political party that I will not name, I believe, than it is reality. There is no reality. But this fabrication that exists in the group that talks about fake news is the biggest producer of fake news. Okay. And the reason they talk about it is they're the biggest producer of it, and one thing that goes on here, this whole coronavirus thing, there's a whole group that goes, oh, it's fake, It doesn't. Well, now her leader has it. So the thing is, you can't, like Mark says, you can't deny the bloody thing's fake. But I'm looking at, because I got to look after my companies, okay, what's going to happen in the next couple weeks? And Dr. Moskowitz was saying, hey, look, the next week, not this week, because he's just going to be symptomatic. He goes, next week, he could be real sick. I mean, the thing is, you could see a real problem. There is a probability, but it's not a great probability of mortality. Melina, probably insignificant mortality. His is actually fairly significant, at least all the demographic side. In other words, he may be up to even double digits, but low double digits, which means he's odds on favor. He's actually going to live. But you got to look at it this way. If you're 10%, you're going to die. The 90% chance you're going to live. So he'll probably survive it. In other words, if you want to bet, he'll probably survive it, but he could get really sick. And then what happens afterwards? There won't be any debates. I think that what we're going to see is nothing until next year. It's going to be until the election. In other words, the election's coming up.
But Nick, I have two questions for you. First question is that, during the election, do you see the rise in COVID cases in US?
Definitely. Definitely. Definitely a rise. My prediction, remember when we did this months ago? I said we're going to have 200,000 deaths by now, and we're there. Okay. Now, again, I cheat. I look at the University of Washington metrics, and the University of Washington, they spend a lot of time studying this stuff, and they have very good analytics at University of Washington, Seattle. That's the place where Bill Gates donated tens of millions, but that's a whole other story. But their statistics, I cheat because I look at their statistics.
Yeah.
They're saying what I'm looking at. In the United States, by December 1st, 400,000 deaths. Next year, probably 500,000. Okay, literally 500,000. We're going to go off the charts. Now, why is that going to happen? Because what happened, everything Dr. Tula is recommending, he's a doctor saying, dude, wear your mask. Dude, protective gear. Dude, stay away. Our politicians are saying ignore his advice. Seriously, ignore it. In other words, just go out and have a good time, pretend it doesn't exist, and good luck to you. So, and that's in many states here in the United States. And these are our quote unquote leaders. Failed leadership here, I would say, Dr. Tula. I don't know I already know what drives it. They think the money here is more important than dying. Seriously, that's the real thing. As a matter of fact, when our friend from Australia, Willie Hill, came out, he goes, well, in Australia, they slap a $4,000 fine. People listen to that, but people won't listen to if you die. Okay, seriously.
No, you got some great
dying,
statistics and everything.
It's not as important as losing money. Losing money
Nick,
is more
I've got to
important
teach
than
you about the losing money and everything, because I want you to scroll back up and everything, or scroll down go back to the first. No, go up, go, keep going. How come we got all these statistics and they're very scary statistics and everything? How come it's being endorsed by the lottery? Because I just happened to notice that the lottery thing was also over there
These
as
are all
well.
dynamic. Mark, these are all dynamic.
This is America, Mark. It's all about
I know.
money, baby.
These are all dynamic.
But you can look at it another way. In the United States, 500,000 people a year die of heart disease, and about 400,000 a year die of cancer. Yeah. Every year, no matter what. So another 500,000 dying of the flu, so what? In other words, you can look at it another way, except my insurance companies don't like it because they haven't factored this into their mortality statistics yet. And so my life companies are not happy with how the coronavirus is being treated right now. And the companies I work with, our primary company has 79 billion. Our another company has 500 billion. All I have is these multi-billion-dollar insurance companies I work with on a daily basis, crying about two things. Number one, interest rates being low. They don't like interest rates being low because they make money on the spread of the interest rates on government bonds and what they pay the investor. They don't like that. Another thing they don't like, well, this is their double whammy, so they cry every week. The mortality statistics, look at this. What are we at? 212,000? Are you kidding me already? Yep. India is number 2, 100,000, but you guys only have one. You guys have 4 times the population as we do here. But this is really, oh yeah, and all the stuff we're talking about, fear mongering. You're scaring people. Well, yeah. Getting a disease and getting very sick is bad enough. I don't even want that. The dying stuff, forget it. At least you're not sick anymore. But this is not a good thing that we're seeing out here.
Not good at all.
I completely agree. And I think it's been more than 1 million people who have recorded deaths so far around the world. But still, in Europe, in fact, the cases are growing up now. If you can see the European chart, you'll find that a lot of cases are coming back again in Europe. It's like reinfection. I think they don't update it today's data, but if you check out yesterday's data, there might be some more cases in Europe. In UK, you can see around 7,000 cases. In Chile and Iran, Iraq, all those places, they're still, having more cases than ever before. In fact, Nick, when we discuss about this thing, there's also a talk about stimulus as well. What do you think the stimulus happening before the election?
That's a good question. Right now, we have another problem. People may or not be aware, but we'll discuss it on Economics Monday. October 1st passed, no stimulus. Layoffs by the airline industry. Tens of thousands of people have been laid off. Unemployment last week, another 700,000. Stimulus package still being debated passed by the House, 2.2 trillion. But the real question is whether the Senate is going to sign off on it. Now, if it doesn't pass, here's my other prediction. The stock market will crash in October. By the way, I've been saying that for a long time. Okay, I'm waiting for it. I'm holding a lot of cash, waiting for it. Not a surprise. Why? Because the only thing that has stopped the crash so far is the stimulus package. If the stimulus package is not passed, we're going to see an October of 1987 or 2008, which when the market plunged 37%. 37%. Look for a 40% crash. I'm not kidding in the Dow, because there's nothing holding it up, Ankit. Nothing. It's thin air. Disney laid off 28,000. All this is bad news. I haven't looked at the market today, but even without looking at it, it's got to be off. Because you're looking at bad news. But we're sitting in our huge cash position, waiting for the crash. If Senate signs it, I have to change my prediction. Just like the University of Washington, what they do is they monitor behavior at University of Washington to determine the amounts of death. We meet every Tuesday at my office in Salt Lake to monitor all this stuff and figure out, hey, where's everything going? And look, if they don't pass that stimulus package, and Kit, you're going to see the market just tank 30-40%. Seriously, it's not going to be fun.
Basically, I came good afternoon.
Just to add,
that is that. Do you think that because of that COVID positive news, Trump will get more sympathy votes in comparison to Biden?
No, I don't think it's going to really affect him getting more sympathy votes. The market right now is only down 281 points, so it's down only about 1%. Not a big swing, guarantee. I don't think it's getting more sympathy votes, but I do see a lot of problems in transitions. In other words, if he gets real sick, he may have to turn over the reins to Mike Pence for a while, and that might happen. And remember, the market doesn't like uncertainty, and now we've just brought in a lot of uncertainty the next couple of weeks prior to the election. And that's one reason I'm pretty. If they don't pass a stimulus package, watch, we're going to be off 30 to 40%.
I want to ask Dr. Tula why we have him. One, I want to talk to him one day about how to reduce my lines to keep those from happening. But instead of taking advantage of your time right now on that, what are some of the, because I went to my doctor yesterday, but this season for us, this change of season brings the flu, which brings another large amount of fatalities in the United States. The flu has always brought in a large amount of fatalities. But when we mix it with a pandemic situation like this, that is flu-like symptoms, to me, it seems like it's just going to become overwhelming on the medical industry. What is it like for you guys in India? Do you have a season like the flu season we have here?
So, Kim, in India, we were already dual whammy last from, I think, around 2 months back. So this is the season before. I mean, I'm talking about 2 months back when the mosquito season starts, and dengue is one more disease which has to be taken into account when we have dengue fever, and so it has, I mean, symptoms which are uh, somewhat similar and somewhat dissimilar from coronavirus, because now we have a lot of asymptomatic presentations also of coronavirus which are not primarily respiratory. So sometimes we will have simple high rates of fever, backache, and breakbone fever kind of an presentation, which is very similar to dengue. So in India, what we did in certain states was that whenever we had fever, we were getting them tested for dengue also, because we did not want to rule out that and end up going on one way street and missing the other diagnosis, because that would have been a catastrophe. And then you're very right that now the weather is changing. There is a chance that there is going to be the normal seasonal flus also entering into the course. So it's going to murky the waters further. So we need to be very careful. I would recommend that the geriatric population should look at flu vaccination also. The seasonal flu vaccine, of course, it's not a great preventer, but even if it is giving a 50%, I mean, cover, I don't think it's a bad idea getting that done.
I would agree with you very much on that, because I actually chose to do that as well because of my age. And I thought, well, you know what? That's one precaution I could take in any preparedness in case I would get COVID. Again, this is the time that I'm locking down even tighter, going to the store less often, making better preparations when I go to the doctors. I don't even now when I go to the doctors, I don't even go into the waiting room. I sit outside. I check in via outside, and then they call me in. So there's, I notice the doctors are taking huge precautions, a lot more during this time. But we got to do something to help the medical profession, because this is going to become overwhelming. Not along with the everyday problems that people have, and we know that this is going to spike during the colder months. We hope it's not, but Dr. Tula, Dr. Sagu, all the doctors have taught us. Dr. Arthur, Dr. Yu, all of them. Right.
Okay, they're not listening to the doctors, Kim.
But
I mean,
let me
that's
tell
the
you
real
something
problem.
else. When I go to the doctors, everyone's wearing this.
The doctors are listening to the doctors, and the smart people are listening to the doctors. But that means there's still a huge group of people that aren't listening, and our celebrities need to step to the plate, and they haven't. And our media needs to step to the plate.
I would put one point more to you, which is very important, because I think people now understand financials more. So give them this beater that if this disease is not controlled, I can assure you your premiums for health insurance are going to double.
Well, what they did,
makes a lot of sense, Dr.
Less, spending more even in the insurance sector, because in India this happened. So now the revision which is going to happen, you will have nearly the rates doubling in because of the corona factor being factored in the insurances.
Right. Yeah, they do listen to the money. And in Australia, the reason how they control it, $4,000 fine if you're caught not wearing a mask. Canada, $10,000 fine, because Willie Hill and our group in Australia said, look, they're not listening to the leaders. They're not listening to doctors. They're not listening to science. First of all, if you listen to leaders, you're probably listening to the wrong people anyway.
But Nick, you say that they're not listening to leaders and they're not listening to the science, but I do have a group that I think is listening to leaders and everything, and Kim will be glad to hear this and everything, because I saw that there was a recent, I believe it was a YouTube video of a teacher, and the teacher was actually showing that the schools had been opened, and they were actually showing that none of the students had shown up because the parents were concerned, and I think later on in the day, the few of the students did show up because they were having in-school learning, very limited in-school learning. So I think they were also supposed to have, like, let's say 10 students or something like that. So, but the parents were concerned, and therefore they did not bring their kids to the school and everything. I think later on that particular teacher did record that a few of the students had started to show up. So I was wondering, are y'all seeing that same thing, Dr. Tula, in India? Because I'm thinking that y'all are probably opening up the schools as well. So are the schools taking precautions? Are they doing things to try to help folks? Or are they just actually staying at home and trying to do more homeschool learning? What are you seeing in India, Dr. Tula?
So, Mark, in India, what they've done is some states have opened up selective classes. So that means they have opened up classes above grade 9, right? So grade 9 means a child will be approximately around 14, 15 years of age, right? So they have basically tried and put these pre-adolescent or adolescent people into schools, and that too on a restrictive manner. But I mean, when it comes down to the schooling of the younger kids, they are still to decide. And I think the government should take it very seriously, and they should be, I mean, very, 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 I mean, careful before deciding to open up the schools completely. And I'm sure they will do that. They will take, I mean, sound scientific judgment into play before they open up. I do understand there is an economic problem. We do understand, we do respect that, and we are not saying, as a doctor community, I believe, we're not saying that stop economics. We're just telling that do smart economics.
Yep, and I think that is probably the smart thing. To answer Nick's question, there are some celebrities who are going out there. One of my favorite is Matthew McConaughey, who actually purchased millions of masks and sent them to the homeless people and to students who could not afford them. And his message at 4th of July was just wear the damn mask. You know, what's the big deal? Be a hero and wear a mask. Why is it that difficult to do? So we do have a few. He actually, I think, went on a little writing tour with Snoop Dogg, and that was their thing, was to get on your mask, people. Let's save the world. Let's unite and save the world. I mean, it's just a mask. It's not like we're asking you to carry a gun and shoot people. So I value celebrities who would step up to the plate like that, because that's a strong message to do. When Dr. Tula has to leave, Dr. Tula, any last words you would like to give the people before you leave?
So there are things I would like. You came, your bouquet of flowers always looks gorgeous. So keep on smiling and keep on having those flowers, because they make our day beautiful. And the other thing to people is, I am requesting with folded hands, please do MDW, mask, distance, and washing. Thank you.
Salute. MDW. Nick, that's easy enough, isn't it? You like acronyms. Nick,
yes, thank you, Dr. Tula. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick's got a new toy.
I have a new toy.
Sound effects.
I like my new toy. It's called sound effects.
Yeah, he's got a new toy. I don't know what to do with you, Nick. You just got that new toy. You're having way too much fun with that new toy, and you're just enjoying it all the time. It was bad enough, Nick, that you've got all of these rolling letters after your name. Now we've got to have a new toy to go with it as well. So
yeah, well,
got those rolling letters and a new toy.
Yeah, I got to have these toys, you know. So.
Being Medical Friday, I just want to reiterate the message that I was getting from the doctors, the staff at the medical center, and how careful they still are at the medical center. And the medical center I go to not necessarily would ever receive COVID patients as a treatment center. And you have to take into consideration if the doctors are doing this and they live by this.
Right.
Why not? I mean, why such resistance? But Nick, I got something for you. You remember that term you used the other day, ODD?
Yeah, it's oppositional defiance disorder.
Right. That's a real thing.
I know that. Why do you think
I
I make things up?
the doctor's office, and like 4 of the staff members go, "That's a real thing." I go, "What? That's just not a teenage thing?" And they go,
No,
no, it's a real thing. I go, oh, so teenagers never grow up, right? And they go, yeah, pretty much. It's a real disease. And I go, wow.
Well, it's a neurosis, they call it, because there's a little difference between psychosis and neurosis. Psychosis is a person who's completely delusional about things, and they believe that the sky is red when it's blue. Usually they believe that they have some supernatural ability which they don't have. In other words, I can walk on water, I can change the world, etc. That's delusional. I can change the sun in the sky. That's delusional, which is a psychotic.
So they're basically Trump. Okay,
Yeah,
I got it.
Wait. That's psychotic behavior. Okay, that gets you in an institution which may not be an educational institution. Then there's neurotic behavior. As a matter of fact, Daniel Sapura wrote a nice book, I don't have it back here, called Neurotic Styles. Neurosis, you're not going to go into an institution, but it's a noticeable, statistically significant behavioral difference above the norm. And one is called oppositional defiance disorder, which a lot of people in the United States have on an undiagnosed basis. What is it? I believe the earth is flat. What it would be is whatever you say, I'm against and because. In other words, you reject authority because you just reject authority no matter what it is. No one's going to tell me what to do. That's oppositional defiance disorder. In other words, wear a mask? No, I'm not going to do it. Why not? No one tells me what to do. That would be classic oppositional defiance disorder. And so what happens is a lot of people in the United States actually suffer from that. And then they start sharing their neurotic styles on Facebook. There's no coronavirus. Look, CDC said there was only 6,000 people died of it. And they don't read that the coronavirus created somebody have pneumonia and that person died of pneumonia, not technically coronavirus. But I think it's all made up. It's completely marked oppositional defiance disorder. So when I'm listening to people, I listen to them, especially on Facebook. Are they saying it, or is their neurotic style that they're not even don't even where they have saying it, otherwise known as oppositional defiance disorder? So that's what it is.
What I did is, and I had a lot of fun doing this because I posted too, but watching the debate, I watched people's comments about the debate to see how they thought, right? And it really opened up my mind to what Nick was talking about, how many people are just so opposite defiant, as opposed to, how can we talk about these policies and work them out together? But it was funny because that became part of my game, was to watch the post versus the debate issue and how people were responding to all that.
You remember, Kim? I said I didn't I didn't listen to music or watch movies. I only read technical journals when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. One of the technical journals I read was DSM-4. It's now maybe DSM-6. It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is basically it's this thick. It's a huge compendium of all the psychosis, which ODD is also included. The other one is the Merck Manual. For those who have not seen the Merck Manual, it's a great manual. It's about all the little diseases in the world, because my mom was actually the head nurse at Tampa General Hospital for years. So she had all these medical books laying around the house. I mean, tons of them. So what I did, I just read them. Why? Because they were laying around the house. I had nothing better to do, so I read the medical books, which include DSM-4 and the Merck Manual, which I used to carry all the time, because the Merck Manual is actually pretty good. It's a pretty good read. You just have to go through a lot of the medical jargon to get there. And that's the problem in every profession. You got to
read all of it.
Well, you got to go through the jargon. In other words,
I've got a good movie for you, Nick. I want you to watch this movie this weekend if you get a chance. It's a good family movie, so you'll really enjoy it.
Is it a technical journal?
Well, it's about, you'll get a kick about how many books this person reads. It's called Enola, Enola Holmes, and it's about the Sherlock Holmes family. Oh, wow. But Enola Holmes, and I think given your story, you will really, enjoy the movie, but I think you'll enjoy letting your grandchildren watch it, because it's a good, wholesome movie about why it's important to read all the books that Nick is talking about.
No, you don't want to read
just having way too much fun with that toy. Nick's got to stop with that toy. He's having way too much fun. But I do have the hardest job that I ever had, and it was probably some 20, 25 years ago and everything is actually something similar to what you're talking about. And it was nothing in the field of journalism or in the field of cultural arts, which most people have learned is what I'm all about and everything. But it was actually being at UNC, the University of North Carolina, a medical transcriptionist, which is very difficult because you're sitting there trying to. I did that for, I think I was like about 2 months, but so and no disparity toward people from different countries and different parts of the world, but they've got, in some cases, very thick accents, and you're trying to figure out what they're saying, and then they're also using medical words. So if you add the accent to the medical jargon, and you got to try to translate that. So I did that. I think it was for about 2 or 3 months, and I'm sitting there going, like, there were a couple of times I'm sitting there going, like, I have no clue what Dr. So-and-so is trying to say, because it was probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever had. But yes, that was definitely a difficult one. I'm sure Mr. Lynn even knows difficult jobs.
But with Lynn, he's got a difficult job. He's got to explain the Family Dollar store. So that's going to be.
No, I have oppositional defiance syndrome. Don't wear that mask.
I want to say something. After visiting my doctor's office this week, which I really love to do, and they have a sign on how to properly wear the mask. And I know everybody there. So when I walked in, we were joking a little bit about things. And they go, the president did it all wrong. And the reason is he pulled it out of his pocket. And that is not how you're supposed to contain your mask. Your mask, the minute you take it off and you want to put it down to store it for somewhere, if you're not putting it in the sun to disinfect it, you put it into a napkin, right?
Really?
Yep, you put it into a napkin. Now, they say that generally you shouldn't put it in a plastic bag, but if that's all you have, that's better containment, right? It's safer containment. But you should put it in a napkin and then store it in a paper sack. That's where you should store your and this has been posted for quite some time from the medical profession, but nobody pays attention. But they were telling me how people will take them and they slide this all the way up their arm and wear it on their arm. They hang it off of one ear. All of these things are not the proper way. It can cause more spread. But seriously, get yourself a napkin, especially if you're going to do it like Donald Trump and keep it in your pocket, and put it in a napkin. Right. And make sure it's wrapped up really nice. And they say that will contain it. So, yep.
Put it in a minion napkin.
Or just a regular napkin. I have these too.
I'm going to draw a mask on my minions and do that.
You should do that.
The mask on the minions, that'd be a great idea. Kim, what are you hearing about washing the mask? Because like I said, I know that I've got several masks, and I know that, of course, we're several months into the virus, and I've heard some people say that they've got 15 or 20, and they've been washing those constantly over these several months. But I'm thinking there's got to be some point where you got to go get new masks. So when you're talking to your doctors, what are they telling you about how long the mask can last in the washing machine?
Cloth mask is supposed to be disposable. Thanks to Dr. Arthur, we learned that you can sanitize them by putting them in the sun. But from what I heard, you should really, wash your mask every day after you use it. Use a sanitizer if you can. My family, when they do it, they've sit it in the sun to help sanitize. So, I think to each his own. I think that a cloth mask can last you forever. I know people in my local area who all went out and made the template from the CDC and made homemade. There's tons of homemade masks around here. And everybody said the same thing. Now, what I like to do, especially in a cloth mask, because they say it should be like double layered, and you got to be real careful with certain materials because the disease passes through them, is if you want to wear a cloth one, and I know it sounds kind of suffocating, but maybe perhaps use this and then a cloth one that lays real loose around you. That might be better. I like the scarf ones. But again, those are things that when you take down, you got to be very careful because when you put them back up. The other thing to me that is very important, and we heard from our eye doctor last week, is to wear your goggles or glasses, right? Because it can get in your eyes. And do also the other thing, put tape and get medical tape because the other tape hurts. these are just precautions. And what I tell people is I look at what my doctors are still doing.
Right.
Now, I'm not listening to the other media either, because they have misled us based on what the president wanted us to do as opposed to what was really necessary. And everybody says, well, the president was doing what was necessary. No, I read the same reports he read back in February, and the reports told me that this disease would kill you. The reports told me it didn't just kill old people, that it can kill anybody because it creates a blood storm. So I'm reading the same reports. It also said that it was airborne, a word called aerosol, but airborne. But if you look back at the president and his first comments, oh, no, it's not airborne. We don't have any reports of it being airborne. He twisted the words around so that he could say that, but it was aerosol, and aerosol is airborne. So you can't trust a word he said, because he was reading the same documents I was. And this was in February that these documents came out. And that's one of the reasons why I started shutting down sooner, because I'm like, oh my God, you can't trust this guy. So, but think about this. My doctors, world-class doctors, Dr. Tula, world-class doctor, Dr. Sadu, they all say the same thing from all over the world. Wear your mask, wash your hands, and distance.
In fact, Kim, remember, in our initial shows, we have in fact shared how to create your own mask at your home. Because at that time, there were not very few, there were not much of a mask in the market, and people were trying to create their own mask. And that time, talking about sometime in March. So I think mask is still there, and it was there in March, and it was there now. In fact, in India, we used to have a lot of masks because of the pollution thing. But now people are... So, I think mask is the only medicine we have right now, and we have to make sure that how we can prevent ourselves and survive the pandemic, and then it's a good way back of life.
No, it is. I think people need to see some things. Nick said, why don't we have more celebrities supporting this? But I want to show Matthew McConaughey, because everybody knows Matthew. The last picture I showed in his bottom tagline, it says, just wear your damn mask. But he bought 1 million masks and distribute them around the United States to the poor communities. But I want to show you something that he did in the beginning that's kind of cute. Kind of cute. Matthew's cute. But let's check this out. Let's pull it back. Let me get it up to here and check.
Now remember, stay at home. But if you gotta go, strap it on like so. So you lay down your favorite bandana, unfold it like so. Get your trusty coffee filter.
Coffee filter.
That's Matthew McConaughey, of course, transformed into a bounty hunter character in his newest Twitter video. He's encouraging everyone to band together to stop the virus. He shows how to make a mask using a bandana and is challenging everyone to wear one. And, of course, stay at home if you're able to beat COVID-19.
Now, how cute is that, right?
And that was great. Lynn, I think you had a point you wanted to make, or something you wanted to share?
Just a comment. When I came on, I heard Nick talking about, whatever the disorder is. I can't even remember now. But I was at one of the first times I've actually been in a face-to-face meeting on Wednesday afternoon. And I was the only one that socially distanced. And one fella who's in a networking group I'm involved in kept looking at me, and he's saying, have you read the CDC reports? Have you read the CDC reports? All this stuff that's published is wrong. Who do you know who's had COVID? And it was interesting, because actually a physician friend of mine almost died of COVID. I knew another physician who did die of COVID. A classmate of my son's in high school died of COVID. Okay. 2 grandchildren of friends of ours have had COVID. So actually, and one of them was hospitalized. So I don't understand people. I think it's anyway. So I sat. They sat under a tent at a picnic table, sharing stuff. They couldn't have been, more than than 2 or 3 feet away from each other, smoking cigars. And I sat about 10 feet away from them, and they kept making fun of me, or at least one of them did. And that's okay. I got a thick skin, son of a gun. Oh, wait a minute, no. Anyway, so yeah, right. But I still fall back on we've solved a lot of issues in the United States over the years. But the one issue we've never been able to solve and come up with a cure for. And I wonder if any of you remember what I've said before.
I don't know what you said before, but I'm thinking that probably one of the biggest issues that we haven't been able to cure is the issue of I'm trying to figure out how I can put it politically correct and not be politically correct, but we haven't solved the issue of stupidity. I mean, folks want to be
that's exactly the word I was going to use, Mark. Stupidity seems to be a rampant disease in the United States these days, and unfortunately, we have not come up with a cure for it. So anyway, if I may, I'd love to quickly get into the dollar store because I do have another meeting I've got to go to.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, because that's not stupid.
It's not stupid.
That's why we call this smart TV. And what we try to do is teach people to be smart, spend your money smart, wise, so that you can invest. And I'm going to give this to Lynn, and we're going to pull up the Family Dollar Store. Go for it, Lynn.
So the first thing I have to say is, if you write down the link, family.dollarstore.com, you can go to our online dollar store. But if you're smarter than that, just go to ibm.tv, because that's sort of where you are right now, and click on the big green button. Then you don't even have to remember the link. Just click on the big round green button. We are an online dollar store. We have over 4,300 items. And Mark, keep working on it, because I know that you're going to get there one of these days.
It's so difficult. He's trying to make it hard on me.
But when we detect that you've looked at a lot of items, we're going to keep adding more. So it's just part of the fun of this, Mark. And by the way, what we don't have is hammocks, and we don't have the drones. No, we don't have those, but we have a lot of great things. They're all quality items. Okay, come from quality manufacturers. Over 60% of them are manufactured here in the United States. And Kimberly, you just scrolled past the one item, which is just my favorite example, the line lift, which obviously over the years, Kimberly, you've been using something because looking at your face, but it on our site, it costs $4.99. Call it $5. We deliver for free for orders of over $25. There it is. It's the Genesis Solutions line lift. Okay. But here's the point. If you go to Amazon, you can get the same product. You really can. And I know people love Amazon, but I guess people love to pay more money because it costs $67 at Amazon versus $5 from us. Why? So one of the aspects, the reason why I'm here is because I love the mission of Money Masters PBS, which owns IBM TV, which is to narrow the gap between between poverty and financial fitness by providing financial education that results in basically financial fitness and anyway, lost my train of thought, but that's okay.
Y'all have great items. You also have like this item here that I just picked up and everything. So I know y'all got some great items. So like y'all have this lovely container where you can keep your money and things of that nature. So I just got that. I just got that from the dollar store. So that was from the dollar store, and that was really cool. So I picked up that. And I also picked up, I don't have an aquarium yet, but I'm planning to get an aquarium. And I picked up that y'all have decorative river stones as well. So y'all have a lot of cool things like that. So they've got these items and the decorative river stones. So these are things that I just recently picked up along with that great food. Unfortunately, I cannot show the food because the food has already gone into my stomach, so it's gone. So I'm sorry, can't show the food, but of course we've also got these lovely minions.
You can put empty balls. There is no food already in the stomach.
No food. So if Bill were here today, Bill would prompt me because of the 5 aspects of financial fitness. Okay, and we used a lot of 5s because, by the way, by signing up to become a customer, you get 5 gift tokens. Okay, $5 worth of gift tokens that you can use even before you start shopping. You can use them on your first shopping spree. But then if you sign up before the end of October, you're going to get another 5. And we're giving 100% of our profit to Money Masters between now and the end of October. So let's start shopping. But the interesting thing is with financial fitness, okay, there are 5 aspects. And we know one of them is saving.
Yes.
Saving so you can pay your bills or you can invest. Well, the last one is paying forward. Okay, so that's number 5. And when you shop at the dollar store, you're saving money that you can invest, but you also have money to pay forward because you are paying forward when you shop at the dollar store. But here's what Bill would remind us of. There are a lot of people here in the United States who are in need because of the fires in California or all throughout the Western states. 42,000 fires this year so far. Individual fires that have started so far this year. But we've had 3 major hurricanes that have hit the Gulf Coast. So find an organization that's providing help to people and buy on the dollar store and ship some stuff to the organization. Now, one in particular, and I've talked about this a couple of times, but in Ashland, Oregon, is a restaurant owned by a fellow who immigrated from Mexico. Okay, the restaurant is called Al Tapatio, and he's been supplying food to the people who are needy in Ashland, Oregon. But he said his problem isn't food. What they need are products for kids and for families that they don't have. Things like toothpaste, things like toothbrushes, okay, masks. I mean, everything in many of these people's houses, everything just simply was gone. Those houses were burned to the ground. Okay, how about baby bottles or toys for the kids to play with, or socks for babies. Kimberly's showing us some of the stuff on the screen, or baby lotion that they can use, baby soaps, Johnson & Johnson, a great, wonderful company, a big company, one of the biggest. So look, you can help people by shopping on the dollar store. It supports Money Masters PBS, but you can also ship to some of these organizations that are helping the people who are in need. So,
and I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I want to add too is during this time there could be baby showers, and we really can't get together for a baby shower. Right. It's healthy for the mama. And one of my dearest, best friends for almost life, her little girl's getting ready to have a baby, and immediately I was so proud of her employer. They said, you need to stay home, right? So she's working from home, which is going to be hard because you want to share this experience with the world when you're pregnant. But she's doing all the right things. But I'm going to pack up some care package and send it to her. And why? Because I'm saving money when I do it. 2, because it's quality products. I'm not going to be ashamed to send her these things, right? And 3, I think she'll enjoy opening up a box being shipped to her. I'm just going to text her, let it sit outside for a day, let the sun sanitize it before you bring it in the house. But that's what I want to share with people, is that we can share with each other, share with somebody in the prison who needs some necessity items, right? Call the prison and say, hey, can I ship some items to somebody that I love that's there? Because, people in prison need these things too. Mask is another one, Lynn. You couldn't have said it any better. There's just not enough mask out there.
Right here. 50 of them in a box for $25. But even better than that, if you use your $5 plus the $5 that we're going to give you for signing up this month, it's going to cost you $15 for 50 masks, 30 cents a mask. Okay.
And I tell you, these masks are better than the ones that the doctor's office are getting now. Now, before they were getting the same ones, but I got my new mask yesterday, and I think they were made for little kids. It was a fraction of the size of my mask. Now, I can't imagine a big man going in there for his medical treatments, being able to cover up his face with this. But literally, it was like an inch shorter in than on either side. I could not believe it. I could barely keep it on my mouth. And so I was tempted to go back out to my car and get my mask. And these are good masks, people. They are the same ones that the doctors have been using previous to now. But yeah.
Great.
But then
I see also even common things like soap, because I got this from you as well. So I got some Dove soap from the dollar store. So definitely you can even get common brands like Dove.
And remember about Dove soap. Dove soap is probably one of the most effective soaps in being able to give you suds very quickly on your hands that basically breaks down the coating around the virus and therefore kills the virus. But here's the thing that really troubles me is the people who walk around like this with their mask on, and they don't realize that they're breathing out some of the virus out of their nose, which they say is, by the way, one of the reasons why kids carry the virus so much, because they carry it around their nose. But then you have the idiots, excuse my French, they walk around like this with their mask on.
Yeah.
And they walk right up to you with their mask like this. But we already determined.
For all these people, we have to make sure that we have to issue a face mask which covers all the face for them, and they have to do it for kind of a helmet basically, and they have to purposely do it for wear that mask for next 1 month. I mean, we can make certain rules the way we have driving rules that if you are not driving properly, you have to do certain voluntary works and community work. So I think we can definitely do that, because see, we have to follow this practice for next couple of years. It's not just couple of months now. So make sure that everyone mask and everyone do the right thing. But in fact, Kim shared me one of the interesting goggles which covers your eyes till your mouth. So it's like a big goggle for your face, and that's an amazing thing. I mean, that's better than a mask, what I feel. So I'm not sure about what doctors say, but I would certainly order one if it's available in India.
There's something new too that might be interesting: a bubble suit.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Yeah, so people are coming up with some unique ideas, right?
Yeah, I think I like the one in the middle for Ankit. I think the color is right for him, and well, actually even more the orange slacks that they would be good for Ankit. Yeah, the orange slacks.
Yeah, I like
that. It looked like that's just scary. I'm visualizing Ankit in that outfit and everything, and I'm not really feeling that and everything. So, Ankit, I don't think that was really the greatest outfit for you. I did have a quick comment to make, and by the way, I love all these things that I got from the dollar store, and I'm actually looking at the box that I got it from, and know that I need to make another order. So you'll be getting another order sometime very soon, Lynn. But one of the things I was going to tell Kim is that I know that earlier today, I think it was Dr. Tula, was praising her plants, and I was also admiring the plants as well. But that being said, I am scared of some news that we just recently got. I think it was 2 days ago, and I don't know if we've talked about it, but they are saying that 40% of the world's species of plants are being threatened with extinction, and that came from the Royal Botanic Garden. I'm assuming that that's somewhere in London. So definitely that sounds very scary that we're about to lose that many plants of the world.
So let me explain why. First off, our coral reefs were dying, and that's our plant oxygen is the coral reefs. And we have now learned how to regrow the coral reef where it's multiplying faster than it's dying, but it's still dying. The other thing is our bee population has died. And your plants survive off of the bee population. I was doing a huge read up on all the wonderful things that bees do for plants. One of the things people don't understand is when a plant stops flowering, a bee is by nature goes up and cuts the plant a little bit, and it causes the plants to flower. And a lot of people don't know this, but this is my first year ever. We don't have any bees, not one bee.
Wow.
And this never happened. We knew that the bee population was dying. We've been kind of sharing not a beehive, but bees between the families around here because we all grow certain kinds of plants to attract the bees. But this is the first year that we've had no bees. We had to go out and personally pollinate each plant with we use a electric toothbrush. And you use the electric toothbrush to pollinate the plants. And now you got to know you got to take the pollination from the male flower to the female flower. And a lot of people don't know this, right? But the flowers are not the same on a plant. So you have to do your homework. You have to know what flowers, what. It's been a huge effort. Now we've brought in some new plants, but the big problem, Mark, that is we killed all the bees with our insecticide. So, people didn't want insects biting them, but there was ways to do that. There are plants that repel those insects, right? That would not have killed the bees. We cross plant all kinds of flowers, and Lynn, you grew gardens, that.
Yeah.
And you grow to keep your bees alive. You grow sunflowers. Well, the problem I had last year, because the sunflowers are a certain kind of vitamin and there's a medicine in it for bees if the beehives are dying. But last year the deer ate all of my sunflowers, so we were unable to feed the bees the medication they needed to nurture. We'll have to bring in our bees, but that's why the rural gardens are dying. That's why all the gardens are dying.
Yeah. There's we use a spray, which is a mixture of a lot of different stuff that's not toxic to bees, and the deer hate the spray. And the interesting thing is, deer have memories. And so if you spray in accordance with the instructions over a period of time, they're going to go to your neighbor's place rather than your place, and because they remember what you do. So if now obviously there's if all your neighbors spray the same stuff.
I'm gonna tell you right now, you're gonna move because it stinks.
But it only lasts for a day.
I know, but it stinks.
I know we've used it for years. But the one thing that's interesting is the deer are starting to eat roses and rose plants, and you don't think of that, but that's because they're able to get in there and somehow eat the stuff without sticking themselves, or they don't care.
They don't care, really. They've been eating my roses for years, and so I quit growing them unless they're behind a fence. But they know how to jump most of my fences because we've got a fenced-in garden down here that's pretty high, but they jump it. But yeah, it's insane. But the deer has mowed down everything. Now, what we've learned to do is plant flowers they don't like. So zinnias, comfrey, a lot of herbal flowers, mums. So we're learning to plant the stuff they won't eat. What do you have, Ankit?
So how about plastic citrus? To make sure that there is no insects and there is a lot of a lot of insects don't overcome over the caustic soda. I'm not sure, but a lot of Indians they use it as a powder to make a circle or a fence kind of a thing, and then it's easy for. In fact, it's good for pets as well, because if you cover it with caustic soda with some mixture, so the pets also won't get any insects which can bite them. So I don't know, but we have been using this since a while now in India.
We've got several things that keep ants out of the house. That's like a powder, like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just a lot of work to go out and do that. But yeah, we got the same thing. Malagranite. I don't know if you've ever used this, Lynn, but somebody called this malagranite because it'll last through a few rains. So we would spread it. It's like a grain, and we would spread it around the garden. And like you said, the deer, they have this memory, right? Oh, don't go over there. They don't like the smell of malagranite, and humans can't really smell it. I mean, unless you on top of it.
I'm not familiar with that.
Malagranite, yeah, we started using that 3 years ago, but again, that's something that you have to maintain a lot and for a while.
Yeah, but Lynn, I think that's available on dollar store.
Yeah. But I will say this: what's an easier solution is something that I've learned over the years is just plant the flowers they don't like. And but Linda, what's interesting to me is they will not eat a squash plant. They don't, I guess, because it's kind of got that spiky fuzzy all over it. So they don't eat squash, but they will eat the mess out of a cucumber, which is the same kind of plant. I don't get it. Except my squash leaves are this big. My squash leaves are bigger than my hands can go.
They don't like the big leaves.
I guess that's it. Now, they will not eat spinach. Will not touch it unless it's the last thing in the garden.
Yeah, well, it depends upon how hungry they are. If you have a really bad winter, oftentimes they'll just eat anything.
Well, they'll eat kale like it's candy. They love kale. Yeah. And kale and spinach look alike, but they'll eat kale and they'll eat around spinach like it's something bad, like they're pushing it aside.
So if you have hostas, and we have lots of, well, at our old house, we had over 90 varieties of hosta. And so the ones that they like, first of all, the ones that are fragrant, they like those. Yeah. Okay. All right. So something called American Standard was one that they really loved. But then you have, if you have the big ruffly leaves, they didn't like those. They wouldn't go after them. So I mean, it really depends. It's hard to guess. A lot of the indigenous plants are ones that if you know the Latin names, they end with canadensis, and the indigenous plants are plants that they tend not to go after. So look up whatever the indigenous plants are that are in your area. But anyway, I have to run. Unfortunately, I have a Zoom coming, and I need to make one phone call. So anyway.
You're 5 to the Family Dollar store, and you'll get 5, and you'll save 5.
And you'll save 5. There you go.
Invest. So thank you very much, Lynn.
Yep.
Take care.
Oh, there's Jeff. Jeff's in the house, and Jeff's always got amazing things going on. So Jeff has joined us and all of that. We were actually just talking about the plant life and what's going on in the plant life and animals and things of that nature. I heard a little bit of what Kimberly was talking about. I had to run off and return a quick phone call and everything, but I did still listen to the conversation. But definitely is really interesting. And I know about those animals invading your house because I live in an apartment complex, and sometimes, unfortunately, when the seasons change, the ants decide that they want to try to migrate into the house, and I have to try to migrate them out. So I'm like, nope, don't want you in here. And sometimes other animals also try to migrate in as well. At least that's an issue sometimes here. I don't know if y'all ever heard of them, but there's even these little things that'll roll around in the carpet. I think they're called carpet bugs and things of that nature. So you got to chase them away sometimes as well. So a lot of times there's these different animals. How is it in California, Jeff? Have we been seeing a number of bugs that have been trying to come in because they're running away from the fires as well? So I imagine that there's a bunch of bugs coming in there.
I live in Washington.
I'm in Washington. My fault. You're in Washington, but you were helping the folks in California. But you're right. You're in Washington. I apologize.
When the weather changes to fall or gets colder, we get rodents.
Wow.
Yeah, rodents. We have our share of rodents and bats. We have to keep the bats out of the attic. And bats are like mice. They can find the teeniest, tiniest open, and they'll get it open and get in. So you have to check all your vents in the attics. I put not foil, but Brillo pad. I get the industrial Brillo pad and try to block up all the holes. And when my water heater burst last year,
I put in I found a hole in the floorboard, and that's where they were coming in. And I put a bunch of Brillo in there, and I put and I boarded it up, and I nailed it shut. I drilled it shut, and for 2 years I have had no rodents. And one day I was in my bedroom and I saw a big one.
Oh,
I saw a big
one. Steel, and he chewed through the steel Brillo. My mom did the steel Brillo as well, and I do the same thing. We've got a pretty airtight house. We built this house and put a lot of things in place, but even still, the rodents will find a way in. And one of the things I cannot stand is, well, yeah, I'm learning to deal with mice, right? But I cannot stand bats. For some reason, they just freak me out. And we've got slews of bats out in the backyard, which is fine with me because they eat all the bugs and stuff. But
Kim, are you sure that those are bats? Because, you know, here in the South, the southern part of North Carolina and everything, as well as other parts of the South, we have these things called chimney swallows, which look like bats, but they're not bats. So, like I said,
because they go like this, they fly like
almost
bats.
look like bats, but they are not.
No, we've found them dead a couple of times. We found a couple dead in the woods. So I know we've got bats.
In fact, Kim, if you remember, I mean, since the way we started talking about coronavirus, the first news which we got is that it comes from bat.
Right.
That was the first news.
It came from chickens. Okay, we have known that corona.
Well, the ruler of the free world is Dracula.
As a bat, but chicken was the first time a coronavirus was ever discovered back in 1954 under the microscope of this woman who was doing research, and they then found it in the lung of a little boy. So we have known that corona has existed in poultry for forever. But I think actually back in the 30s was when it was first found. So, you know,
if you talk about 30s, that means we are very close to the Spanish flu. So do you think that this is the second form of Spanish flu? Because it happened in 1920?
Because I don't think we had enough research back then, but I'm sure that they've kept like they do many things over the years. You know, they catalog and archive a lot of the viruses so they can continue studying. You know, like the plague, right? They had the several plagues, right? Leprosy is one of them that they still research. There's no way I'd want to touch that. What if it flipped up? You know, but no,
you know, I've got friends that have done those studies, and those studies, I don't know how they do it. Like I said, I know a number of folks need to do it in order to survive. And in the economy we're living in, more and more people are doing those human testing kind of tests and everything. But I'm with you. A lot of times I'm sitting there going like, I know it's important for the diagnosis of medicine and all of that, but that's a lot of prodding and prodding and a lot of things that I'm not always sure about, the control groups and things of that nature. So even like some of the sleep studies and a number of other studies that I've had friends of mine involved with, I'm sitting there going like, y'all can do it. I'm definitely glad that y'all are doing it, but it's not for me. So definitely I can understand.
Question: has there been any correlation to cannabis being a means to help with COVID? Has there been any findings in that?
There's been zero connection with CBD or CBG or CBA that allow the receptors that work with CBD and also THC, which go to your brain receptors and help with brain cancer and things like that. It kind of eats it up. They call there's certain foods. I'm drinking some right now. It's called Shilajit, and it's actually an herb that is called a grabber. And so there's some herbs and there's some foods and there's some marijuana or THC derived, I guess you would call them molecules or product from the plant that actually are grabbers. They take things and then they'll grab them and they'll leave your body, you know, whether you say it's magical or not. And but they have not yet answered your question.
Well, I guess that's just going to take time and research. It's not going to be something, you know, that's what I keep telling everybody. We're leaping for a vaccine for COVID, and what we should be doing is protecting ourselves for the next other kind of diseases that we're going to be hit with, which is the flu that kills hundreds of thousands of people every year.
Well, what about bio warfare? I mean, these jerky humans are, they either have a mission to go with the Bible and create Armageddon and be really vigilant about it and secretive and all these things. And so all the conspiracy theorists are fed, all of the supremacists are fed. The hate is fed instead of the love, like you say. I watched Sanjay Kupa for hours last night talk about, he was freaking and he was against marijuana until Charlotte's Web came out, and that was a strain with no THC that healed this epileptic gal in Colorado, and it's a strain that made these guys millions of dollars, and it stopped epilepsy in children.
Wow, and that's something that we need to take a look at in the future. We're at the top of the hour. Financial Friday is starting now, so we need to bow out. And thank you for watching us on Medical Friday, and bring us next week some more talk about that, Jeff, because that's good talk for Medical Friday. Don't forget to watch us tomorrow, Spiritual Saturday, but also Sasha Starr's Chess Stars, as well as some other wonderful Zach funk music. Definitely enjoy Sunday with us, and then Monday morning start Win 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 and Economics Monday. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you, and have a good
day. Thank you.